I'm going to call to order the Brattleboro Selectboard meeting of April 21st. Thank you all for coming. The board entered into executive session at 5:15 p.m. John, I asked you before, but was the meeting properly warned?
Yes, Oscar, it was.
Thank you. Board, are there any adjustments to tonight's agenda? Seeing none. Chair's remarks. I have two things. One is a little longer, so I'll do that first. Libraries spark creativity, fuel imagination, and inspire lifelong learning, offering a space where individuals of all ages can find joy through exploration, discovery, and social connection. Libraries serve as vibrant community hubs, connecting people with knowledge, technology, and resources while fostering civic engagement, critical thinking, and cultural enrichment. Libraries provide free and equitable access to books, digital tools, and innovative programming, ensuring that all individuals, regardless of background, have the support and inspiration they need to learn, connect, and thrive. Libraries partner with schools, businesses, and organizations to maximize resources, increase efficiency, and expand access to essential services, strengthening the entire community. Dedicated librarians and library workers provide welcoming spaces that inspire discovery, collaboration, and creativity for all. Brooks Memorial Library is the pulse of the community because it holds the community at its heart. Libraries, librarians, and library workers across the country are joining together to celebrate National Library Week under the theme Find Your Joy. As the chair of the Select Board, I would like to officially recognize April 19th through April 25th as National Library Week. During this week, I encourage all residents to visit their library, explore its resources, and celebrate all the ways that the library helps our community find its joy. Thank you. And second, I'd like to provide a brief update. The Brattleboro Select Board met in joint meeting with the Hinsdale Select Board yesterday evening. We enjoyed a group discussion of the bridge project. We also discussed several possible plans and arrangements related to the event for the opening of the new Amtrak station, which is tentatively planned for June 24th. The two boards also created a joint working group of the two select boards that will meet to explore ideas and develop a plan for how to move forward on the bridges and island. And that's all I have. John?
Thank you, Oscar. We want to let everyone know that we still have several items like water bottles and a pair of reading glasses that were left at town meeting in the Brattleboro Union High School gym. If you think you may have left something at town meeting, feel free to check in at the town manager's office and reclaim your items. We've been getting regular updates from Amtrak on the train station project. They had a test engine at the platform last Tuesday. The project team is reporting a final completion on June 1st, and a ribbon cutting is being planned, as Oscar mentioned, for Wednesday, June 24th, tentatively 11:30 to 1, something like that. I was able to attend a trail clearing day last Saturday that was led by the Friends of West River Trail, and around 40 volunteers started at the new train station in downtown Brattleboro to begin clearing this new trail that the Select Board gave an easement to the Friends of West River Trail for, that will run from the train station along the shore of the Connecticut River and continue 1 mile south to the old railroad bridge known as Fort Hill Bridge. From there, this new trail will connect Brattleboro to a network of over 100 miles of trails running across New Hampshire and Massachusetts. In just a few hours, those 40 volunteers cleared around a mile of brush and removed something like 12 yards of trash from the future trail corridor. And I see a few of you in the room who were also there. I really appreciate everyone's efforts in getting that project off the ground. Burn permits have been reinstated. If you plan to have a fire on your property, please visit the Brattleboro Fire Department website. find the burn permits section and apply for a permit before burning. Areas with dense vegetation remain dangerous due to dry leaves and grasses, and those types of fuels, those fine fuels, can dry again really quickly, and even a small spark can ignite a fire in the conditions that we've been having. When conducting a burn, please follow these safety guidelines. Never leave a fire unattended. Only burn natural woody materials. Keep water and fire suppression tools nearby, things like shovels and rakes, and ensure the fire is completely put out with water before you leave the area. If your fire spreads beyond its intended area, don't be shy. Call 911 immediately. Ground fires can really spread rapidly, especially if there's winds, and they can cause significant damage in a very short amount of time. Reminder that the fourth quarter tax and water sewer payments are due on May 15th. Any amount unpaid after 5 p.m. on May 15th will get an 8% penalty and a 1% interest charge. Multiple ways to make your tax payments: pay in person between the hours of 8:30 and 12, right downstairs, or 1 to 5, Monday through Friday, and you can do it with cash, check, or credit debit cards. Use the town business drop box in the municipal center parking lot with a check in a sealed envelope. Make a check or money order with official postmark on or before the due date. Visit the town website, brattleboro.gov, and pay there with a credit or debit card, or sign up for the direct debit program by visiting brattleboro.gov/direct debit, and the payment's automatically withdrawn. Please direct any questions about taxes and water and sewer billing to the Finance Department, 802-251-8152. You may have seen or heard or noticed in your water that the Department of Public Works is currently conducting spring nighttime water main flushing, as they do every year throughout the town. Flushing is taking place overnight, and residents may notice temporary discoloration of their water or potentially low water pressure in affected areas. This is totally normal. It's part of the routine system maintenance. Don't be surprised by it. If you do experience discolored water, please run the cold water until it clears, and use caution when doing laundry. If you have any questions, please contact the Department of Public Works. Brooks Memorial Library will be hosting a send-off to its stellar library director, Star Latronica, this Saturday, April 25th, from 1 to 5 p.m. This event is open to the public and will be happening in the main reading room at the library. Light refreshments will be served courtesy of the Friends of Brooks Memorial Library. And that's all I have.
Great. Thank you, John. Select board comments. Isaac, any comments?
Good evening, everyone. For folks who missed it, on the corner right here of the table, folks who are in the room, there's an agenda if you'd like to grab one. For folks participating online, you can always find it on the website for the town. I wanted to celebrate the folks at Tri-Park, the mobile home parks that had a celebration at Mountain Home Trailer Park the Sunday before last, and Amanda Ellis Thurber spoke at this event. It was an awesome ribbon-cutting ceremony for the relocation of homes that would be in the floodplain, and it's really great to see that effort. That there was a huge amount of work that went into this project over many years, and Amanda, you may have more that you want to share, but I was just really excited to see that culmination of that project and want to applaud the town staff that were part of that. I saw a bunch of you there at that event, and it's really a great example that's been replicated around the state, that's giving inspiration to co-ops around the state, cooperative mobile home parks. It's really great to see that energy. Also wanted to just tell people about the upcoming AIDS Walk. That's an annual tradition here in Brattleboro. The AIDS Project of Southern Vermont is putting this on Saturday, May 23rd from 10 a.m. to noon. Again, that's May 23rd at the Center Congregational Church. Thanks.
Thanks, Isaac. Amanda?
Sure. Hi, everybody. Yes, that was a great event, getting the homes out of the floodplain finally. It was 25 years in the making. Kudos to Brian Bannon, to Sue Fillion, to our entire planning department and departments before them and select boards before them. That's a lot of decades of hard work to make something happen. And I want to announce, because we won't have a select board meeting before next Saturday, but next Saturday is the first farmers market out in West Brattleboro of the season. I hope you go out and support your farmers and have a good time there. So that will be May 2nd, Saturday. Starts at 9 a.m., I think, and goes into 2.
Thank you. Peter, any comments?
No, I'm good.
No?
I just wanted, I don't know if my mic's on.
It is.
But, okay, thanks. In preparation for some of the items on the agenda this week, and also just as a new select board member, I've been having meetings with department heads. I've been reaching out to people in various roles, like across the town, whether that's, people who live here, people who work for other agencies, and just a general sentiment of appreciation for everyone who's involved in the work that we do at the municipality, whether that's directly or indirectly. But I've had some really lovely, helpful conversations this week, and it has just highlighted the breadth and the expansive expertise we have in different areas. So, it's a love letter to everyone here.
Thank you, Nell. All right, I'd like to open public comment. This is an opportunity for members of the public to speak about something that is not on tonight's agenda. Is there anyone who'd like to speak today? Yes, please. And if you haven't been here before, just come up to the mic and say your name, and you'll have 3 minutes to speak.
Hi, I'm Nina Wilson. I have lived in Brattleboro for 20 years, and I wrote this so that I would get it all out. Good evening. I'm here tonight as a parent, not a policymaker. I'm here because my 11-year-old daughter and her 2 friends were chased by a man with a machete over Labor Day weekend. That is not something any child should ever experience. It has changed how they feel walking around outside, how they trust their surroundings, how safe they believe their community is. This wasn't an abstract policy issue for us. It was real, it was terrifying, and it happened here in Brattleboro. We were later told that this individual was not originally from our community, but had come here through a voucher program after being displaced from elsewhere. That elsewhere was Sharon, Vermont. That matters because we are being told that expanding these vouchers will help our local residents, but this is not always what is happening in practice. I want to be clear, I'm not here to speak against people in need. Everyone deserves safety, dignity, and support, but our responsibility as a town is also to ensure that the systems we put in place do not unintentionally create unsafe conditions, especially for our children. Right now, there are serious gaps. There is not enough oversight, not enough support services, and not enough infrastructure to ensure that individuals placed here through vouchers can integrate safely into the community. When these systems fail, the consequences fall on families like mine. My daughter is lucky. She has parents who can advocate for her, access resources, and help her process what happened. But what about the children who don't have that support? Who is speaking for them? Who is protecting them? We cannot ignore the reality that incidents like this are happening, and they are having a lasting impact. Expanding programs without addressing its flaws do not solve problems, it magnifies it. Before considering any increase in vouchers, we need accountability. We need clear data about who is being placed here, where are they coming from, what are the support systems in place. We need to ensure that public safety is not an afterthought. This is not about fear, it's about responsibility. It's about protecting the most vulnerable members in our community, our children, my children. I urge the board not to increase the voucher program at this time. Instead, focus on strengthening safeguards, improving oversight, and ensuring that any program we expand truly serves both those in need and the community as a whole. I'm happy to answer any questions you have. It was hard for me to do this. I will say that all 3 of those 11-year-olds have suffered greatly because of this event. It was very public. It happened over Labor Day weekend. It was the gentleman that chased them with a machete was held without bail, which never happens here. That just speaks to the magnitude of the crime. And he pled guilty to a misdemeanor stalking charge and was out and is out. And we just got notified last week that he was arrested again for felony theft. So these are the kinds of people that you're bringing to our community, and we're having to suffer the consequences because of it. And I can assure you that an 11-year-old having to start anxiety meds because they, are in fear in a community that's supposed to be safe and supposed to prioritize them is not prioritizing them.
Thank you, Nina. I think we all appreciate your comments. We'll be talking about the voucher program a little later, and maybe I should have asked you to hold this until then, but I didn't want to interrupt you. So we will incorporate that when we talk about that later. Thank you. Anyone else in the public who'd like to speak? Yes, Lisa Marie.
Hi, Lisa Marie, 69A. That sucks, and I'm really sorry that happened to you. Anyways, sorry. I am here to ask for lockers or a storage unit for people because a lot of people are stashing their belongings. They have no place to store them. 69A does not have room to store everyone's things, nor does Groundworks, nor does Turning Point or anyone else at this point. And BPW is finding, as well as police, are finding their belongings and considering them to be abandoned and throwing them out. This is not abandoned property. So my ask is there a way, I know you guys have low storage for the encampments and stuff, but is there a way we can work on putting some of that stuff in with that, or getting another storage unit, or some lockers or something, and 69A will work with the town on that if possible. So also we're doing pretty good. 69A is just a quick update. We've rearranged a lot of things. We're now officially in gallery walk. We're coming up to a year with our 10 to 4 distro-y whatever program for our art center, and yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. I appreciate the update, and I have put storage lockers on my list to follow up after the meeting. Anyone else? Star.
Hi, everybody. Star Latronica, Library Director next door. And thank you, everyone, for your kind words about libraries. I did want to say that in helping everybody find their joy at the library, this week we have 19 events. We have a broad panoply of events and programs for people to enjoy and find something joyful. Even as we speak during this meeting, we have live birds of prey on the main floor. We have a military experience reading group on the mezzanine, and pajama story time on the top floor. So something for everybody. So I did want to let you know that we also have 2 events that are off-site. We have 2 films that will be shown at the Latches, sponsored by the Friends of the Library. They're fabulous movies, one for kids at 2 o'clock, Matilda, and if you have not seen Lost in Paris, do yourself a favor and come see it on Thursday night at 7 o'clock. No matter how good you feel going into that movie, you're going to feel even better coming out. So thank you, and happy National Library Week.
Thank you. Star, is the pajama story time, is that for kids or adults?
Yes.
It's for kids, but
thank you.
The readers are also wearing pajamas.
Any other members of the public with a comment? Seth? Okay. We'll move ahead to the consent agenda. John, can you give us the sketch?
Yes, Oscar. We have 5 items on the consent agenda tonight. If you approve this agenda, you will be awarding a $30,240 low bid to Slate Rock Timber to implement the High and Green Street intersection reconfiguration project. You will be awarding a $360,916 low bid contract to Bazin Brothers Trucking to resurface the pavement on several roads in the Oak Grove corridor, including Coombs and Baldwin Streets and Oak Grove, Clark, and Moreland Avenues. You'll be authorizing staff to apply for a Department of Justice FY25 Comprehensive Opioid Stimulant and Substance Use Site-Based Program Grant of up to $1.3 million, with Brattleboro potentially serving as a fiduciary for other towns interested in implementing situation tables, but only if our administrative costs can be fully covered by the grant. You will be approving a contract with Verkada to replace the security cameras that are at the police station in the amount of up to $50,000 as of July 1st, and you will be ratifying a settlement in the matter of Kelley v. Eaton on the advice of counsel and VLCT, the town's insurer.
Thank you, John. Yes, I should have said at the beginning of public comment that if anyone had a question about the consent agenda, that was the time. Sue, do you have a...
Yes, Susan Belleville, Brattleboro. I'd like to have the High and Green Street intersection improvement item removed from the consent agenda to get more information about what that involves, and also I disagree with it, so I'd like to speak with it when it's appropriate.
Okay. I think if we're happy to do that. If there's an informational question we can answer, we'd happily do that now, but if you'd rather pull it, we're happy. It's going to go to the end of a very long agenda, is all. Okay. Board, are we...
Oh, it looked like Ms. Belleville was about to get up to say something more. I wasn't sure if there was...
Sorry, the microphones don't amplify out well, so I have to read occasionally when I don't hear it well. With regard to the High and Green Street and intersection improvements...
oh, sorry. I think I
okay.
misset that up. If there's more to say and discussion to have, we'll pull it and it will go to the end of the agenda.
Okay. Yes, I do have more.
Yeah. Okay. I'm seeing head nods from enough of the board.
Do we need to vote? I'm seeing different.
Our policy has been that if one board member wants it pulled, we'll do it. So.
Okay. Do we have any ability to not have it go to the very end of the agenda?
We do.
I would be curious to know from an administrative point of view, if we didn't get to it tonight and we had to come back to it next meeting, what the effect could be.
Longer meeting.
But I'm just wondering if there's a time pressure from the department's point of view that could make it beneficial to look at earlier on the agenda. I'm trying to talk louder so that Sue doesn't have to read, so it's not tone, I'm trying to be better.
If you could act on it tonight, that would be the preference.
Would the board prefer to take it up first in regular business?
I would say maybe we could take it up, first in regular business or somewhere before the solid waste ordinance.
I agree with regular
Right.
business.
Then if there's no objection, we'll do that first before agenda item A.
Saying that, I move to accept the consent agenda as amended, or as, is that appropriate?
Okay, Amanda has moved to, yes.
Amanda, I would just suggest if you would make a motion to accept items on the consent agenda B through E.
Sure, I'm
Great.
happy to repeat that. I move to accept the consent agenda items B through E.
Great. Amanda has made a motion to approve the consent agenda items B through E. All select board members in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Abstentions? 401. Okay, we're going to move to regular business, and we are going to start with High and Green Street. Well, I think it probably makes the most sense to just ask Sue her questions.
Sure.
And we can start there.
Sure. There is a memo in your backup materials that explains the project and the bids that came on it. I would ask Dan Tyler and Sue Fillion to join us to answer any questions that Sue might have.
You seem to be joining us already.
So my issue is that it's number one, I have a concern that the bid that is the lowest is like $50,000 lower. So I'm wondering if that got a close scrutiny around the items needed for that particular intersection, if this were to become an accepted bid. One of my big concerns is the stormwater runoff, because coming down off of Western Avenue, the water that hits that particular corner, if that curb cut isn't done right and or there isn't sufficient drainage, where does it all go? It could create a little bit of a kerfluffle around stormwater runoff if there's no appropriate mechanism to get the water, because right now it goes down Green Street and down High Street. So what does that look like if there's a barrier in the way that redirects it all down High Street? And probably the biggest thing is that that current configuration that they're going to, in this plan now, make permanent is working really well as a temporary correction to how the traffic flows down Green Street off of High Street. We've got a lot of things we could do with $30,000 that are way more urgent than making that a permanent fix. I don't really see any compelling reason to move forward with this if we could take it on at another point in time with monies at another maybe better financial situation in a year or two. But we've got way better things we can do with this $30,000 now. If we already have something that's working, even though it's temporary, I would prefer to see that occur.
Thank you, Sue. So the questions I heard were, for Sue and Dan, the low bid being so much lower than the other bid, do we feel confident in that? Actually, I'll just take them one at a time. So,
Sure. The difference in the bids, raised our eyebrows as well. We went through each of the items. We looked at our cost estimates. The low bid is much closer to our estimate than the higher bid. I think it's a case of the work. The contractor with the low bid is probably more familiar with this, and also a smaller outfit with lower overhead. Whereas the other contractor has done a lot of great work for us, but this isn't the type of work that we typically engage with them in. I think it was, we have a good relationship with them, so they put a bid in. I don't think that they necessarily were looking for this project. After reviewing it, we're comfortable with the low bid.
have we worked with the low bidder before?
We have, yes.
Okay, the second question was about the stormwater effect of actually building out that curb.
Sure. It really should have no impact on the existing conditions because I don't have an image of the project now, but the bulb out is going to be built in such a way that the bike lane continues behind it on the existing curb line. So the existing sidewalk, the sidewalk will go back where it is, then there's a 5-foot space, and then there's another curb that forms the backside of the island. So the stormwater will run down the existing curb line as it does now.
Okay, and then I think the third question is a little more for the board about, or John, perhaps.
I would just, while we have Sue here, I think it might be helpful to the board to hear all of the community work that we did in anticipation of this project.
Definitely.
Yeah. Can I quickly interject and suggest that those of us who can speak louder do? Would that be helpful?
I'm sorry?
Is it helpful for us, those of us that can't speak louder, is it helpful for us to speak louder so you don't have to read it?
It just takes a second for the words
Okay.
to get up there.
It's okay?
Whichever way works for you guys, I'm not.
Okay.
Thanks, Nell. Yes, Sue.
So this project has been around for a long time, I think with previous administrations and even department heads. Traffic Safety Committee has had a lot of concerns about speed on Green Street for a very long time. So we engaged, I think that there was money put into a capital plan at some point to do some engineering and then construction for this project. I don't have the dates exactly off the top of my head, but I think it was around 2023 that we engaged an engineer for this project. We had a couple of public meetings with the neighborhood to kind of discuss it and then to look at different alternatives. And then they went into engineering of this design because this was the preferred alternative by the town and the neighbors that we came out with. And then we missed last construction season, I think, with the state project going on, so it's been pushed into this one. But there had been money set aside in the capital plan to address this. And the idea of the design is to kind of create a more of a teed up intersection of Green Street with High Street so that cars don't act like an off-ramp coming off of High Street and whizzing down Green Street. It forces them into a turning movement. It narrows up that intersection or the roadway width there. So that's the history of the project.
Thank you, Sue. So I think the last question is a little more for the board about different prioritizations of how to spend the money. I think for my part, I think there are always different ways to think about and different priorities to juggle. A big part of me just wants to see this project through after so many years and so much community engagement and just bring it to completion rather than reopening the question after so much input. So those are my thoughts. Board members?
Those are mine as well.
Yeah, I'll hold comments until after public participation.
Peter?
Yeah, it's a long time coming, so I'm like to see it through.
No?
I'm going to speculate. I saw Alyssa's hand go up on Zoom and then come back down. I remember the last meeting. I remember where Alyssa had previously spoken at a meeting about being concerned about the fast traffic going down Green Street. I've had some teachers from Green Street School approach me and ask about traffic calming measures on that road. So to me, this aligns with concerns that have been voiced to me. I really appreciate that Dan, I appreciate hearing how the stormwater can flow down the bike lane. I think that's a really important point of clarity. And that it fits in with the DPW cost planning. So I'm comfortable with it.
Yes, comments from the public. Sue?
So I see where the trend is going, so I'm going to ask one other thing. And I don't know if it's standard policy with the town, but to make sure that the contractor is bonded for the project.
Is that something that's already in place, or?
I don't think there was a bond
Because it's so
requirement on
small.
this project.
So because of the small size of the contract, in this case, there was not a bond.
He's also been in business 4 years with this particular company.
We can look at the cost benefit of that if you would like.
I think my instinct at this point is to appreciate the concern, but trust the work that's gone into preparing for this so far by the department. Rick?
The number is a little less shocking than I thought it might be, which I appreciate. I am curious what it would cost to do it in-house. And also, as far as traffic calming goes, it would seem that what was already done was accomplishing that, I imagine. So, given these days of attempts to keep the budget tight, even this small amount could $30,000 here and $30,000 there adds up. So, and if we're trying to keep our own employees busy, that's why I asked about the in-house thing. I think we should keep as much in-house as possible.
Thanks. Was there any consideration of doing this in-house?
Yeah, so this contract includes, the contractor, their work is going to be to remove the pavement, install the granite curb, backfill the granite curb. In-house, we are going to install the sidewalks, do the paving, do the landscape work. We chose to contract out the curb work just because of the time it takes us to do it. We're trying to do this project during summer break. So the hope is the contractor mobilizes, gets that part done quick, and then we can come in and finish it off ourselves after. I would say we're probably doing as much of the work as the contractor.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments from the public? Yes, Pierre.
Just a quick comment, Pierre Landry, District 7. I just wanted to let people know I did email Oscar on this topic, thinking that what has been put in temporarily is doing the job. It seems like a crime to tear up perfectly good pavement that was just laid last year, where there's so many other areas that need attention that this money could be put towards. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no other comments, I'm going to bring it back to the board. Anyone, any final remarks?
I'd be curious to know if Sue or Dan has a response to why we would want to see permanent paving put in as opposed to the current striping and little plastic barriers, right?
Yeah, what's the advantage of the permanent installation?
The school drop-off and pickup won't be able to move the plastic barriers and park in the painted area. That's continued to be a problem. They're ignored by a lot of people. And I think, the vision all along was to install a permanent island there. The paving project kind of got in the way of it. We had hoped to do it before they came through, and it just didn't happen.
Thank you. Other comments from the board?
I'm going to ask a few things that I think the public might ask. Are we able to know if it's any more expensive doing it after the paving project for, I guess, the sentiment that we're going in after work was already done?
So
does that make sense? Like, are we having to basically add on costs because of what we're doing after the repaving?
I don't think so, no.
Okay. And essentially, the sentiment is that having a permanent curb in place provides a higher level of security than the plastic barriers that can be moved. Okay.
Yeah. Other comments? Seeing none, I will entertain a motion, and whoever reads it, just don't, there's a duplicate word in there. Anyone's so
Amanda's
inclined.
closest.
Could someone else read the motion?
Sure.
Oh, wait, I'm sorry. Can I wanted to repeat one thing Dan had already said, but Frick wasn't here for it. Part of what was noted, you had asked, was it considered to do in-house? When Dan was first speaking on the price of the bid, he said that it was similar to what they had priced out in-house, if I'm repeating that correctly.
Mm-hmm.
So I think part of that is that it was cost comparable. And I think I forgot the other thing, so sorry. Yep.
Great. Would anyone care to make a motion?
I got you. All right, I'll motion to award the High and Green Street intersection reconfiguration project contract to Slate Rock Timber in the amount of $30,340.
Great. Thank you. Peter has made a motion to award the High and Green Street intersection reconfiguration project contract to Slate Rock Timber in the amount of $30,340.
That's $100 more than it says here.
Let's confirm the amount. Is it?
I've got 30,340.
Okay.
That's what I have too.
Great. Well, what's on the consent agenda is no longer. Yeah. So I think the motion as read is correct, but I appreciate the update. So Peter has moved to award the High and Green Street intersection reconfiguration project contract to Slate Rock Timber in the amount of $30,340. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That's 5. Any opposed?
I'm abstaining.
401. Great. Thank you both. Okay. Regular item A, establish Human Services Committee. Let me find it.
19, page 19.
Page 19. Okay. Well, yeah,
Summary. So the town rescinded the representative town meeting at the ballot this March. Therefore, the Human Services Committee, a committee of that body, no longer exists. There's no authority under state law for a committee of this nature to be established or appointed at open town meetings. So the Select Board, as you'll recall, warned an item which was approved at the April 11th town meeting, which read that the town raise and appropriate the sum of $350,000 for the which was amended to be appropriate the sum of $350,000 for the support of social service programs and facilities within the town to be allocated as recommended by the Human Services Committee, as appointed by the Select Board, and subsequently approved by the Select Board. So this item tonight is the logical next step in that to implement the direction of the town meeting. Some voters expressed their thought that the Select Board would appoint members of the previous representative town meetings Human Services Committee to this newly formed Town Human Services Committee if you take up this motion and approve it.
Thank you. So to clear up that last part, I think our intent has certainly been to appoint the old committee to the new committee. Is that a process that we can follow, or I'm looking at Bob, do we have a legal requirement to post a vacancy and accept all applicants and go through interviews, et cetera?
If you want to be consistent with your regular appointments, you should have the applicants and go that route. But as a board, you could, by yourself, agree to not go by your own standard protocols. So it depends on whether you want to be consistent with your protocols or not. I leave it up to you. I know that this is somewhat different because it was a prior committee of representative town meeting, and there's been a lot of talk of already, of going with the same committee. So that's why I say you have your protocols, but you can agree as a board to suspend those protocols and apply a different.
And when you say protocols, do you mean just sort of past practice or actual
well, in your
things
rules
that we
of
have put into
procedure,
place?
when you're appointing committees, there's an application. It's announced, and then there's an application process, and then people submit interest to do that, and then there are usually interviews and appointments. That's your typical process that has been followed. So I don't want to stand in greatly in the way of this, but I always want to point out that if there is a procedure that you typically follow, to stick with your procedure. If you wish to deviate from that, it's not illegal to do that. Okay.
John?
Yeah, I was just going to say something close to the same thing. It is in your rules of procedure. That's what you all approved. You can, I believe, have a motion to, suspend those or do something different. However, we presume all of the previous members are still interested in serving, but that might have changed due to the nature of the vote at the meeting. Who knows? This is your way to ascertain that actually those folks that were previously serving still continue to be interested in doing the work.
Okay. If the board doesn't object, I'd like to ask David what his thoughts are. David Miner. Seeing no objection.
David Miner, Chair of the Human Services Committee. I think we've talked about this previously in anticipation of this. So I did go out and ask individuals who currently serve in the committee if they were interested in continuing to do so, so that we could complete the process. And everyone agreed. We've already done all the reviews, and so it's where we now just need to go and reallocate it, to the amount that was approved by the open town meeting.
Okay, well, let's discuss it. Thank you, David.
I have a quick question for
Yes.
David, if you don't mind. David, is that committee at capacity currently?
Yeah, I think seven is a good number.
Is that capacity though? I mean, is there room for two more people? Or and you'll forgive me for asking because I know that there have been committees that have been formed and then have lost people along the way, and you can still operate with seven, but if it's supposed to be nine, is my question.
There really isn't a number. I mean,
Okay.
we had 9, but 2 felt that they couldn't continue because of the
Right.
time
Okay.
commitment. I think at this point, we have reviewed all the applications. To bring somebody new in, we'd have to bring them up to speed. They'd have to read through all the applications. And I think that would, make for a longer process on our part.
Thanks, David. So to bring it back to the board, I am personally comfortable in this patchwork situation saying, yes, let's just get to our goal and appoint the people we're going to appoint, as we've been saying we would for months. And it adds a little bit of an element of farce if we open up applications and then just go ahead and appoint those people anyway. So I'm interested in how we would all like to proceed.
I mean, as a general rule, I would not have had a problem with it if I haven't been approached by at least 3 or 4 other people interested in doing this work, which is why I asked the question that David, if there's room, can we just appoint the people who were there? And if there are positions for 2, can we do a hybrid? Is it worth it? I'm not married to either one. I'm just, as we all get approached with different things, I was approached with that as wanting to have weigh in on how this money is distributed.
Isaac, Amanda?
Yeah, I hear what Fish is saying. I think it's a good idea if people expressed interest. And I also hear what Bob says about staying consistent with our committee appointments. And I'm reading that this is for the establishment of the Human Services Committee. That's what our existing motion has. Would we have to change the motion to also, okay, there goes John. He's got something.
Yeah, I think that, so this was warned as establishing the committee,
Just
not
establishing.
appointing it. So I think technically where you're going, I think is accurate, Amanda.
So this would be for the purpose of establishing it.
Yep.
Check that box. And for a future meeting, we would be doing appointments?
The normal, so in your next agenda item, we were expecting that you would establish this committee pursuant to the town meeting. And then in your next item, you would announce committee vacancies for this and through your typical process, take applicants. Then you would know for sure if the applicants that David mentioned are still interested. You also would know if there was lots of other interest for whatever reason. That's your typical process, but you can, again, you could suspend your rules of procedure and do it differently if you prefer.
Great. And as chair, I'll appreciate the pullback to what we're actually discussing today, which is the establishment of the committee. So I would say that the method of appointment we actually should leave out of this conversation.
So may I make the motion then?
Yes, let's make a motion and then we'll hear from the
To
public.
establish the committee? Okay. I move to establish a Town Human Services Committee consisting of 7 members for the purpose of making recommendations to the Select Board regarding allocation of human services funds in the town budget.
Thank you. Amanda has made a motion to establish a Town Human Services Committee consisting of 7 members for the purpose of making recommendations to the Select Board regarding allocation of human services funds in the town budget. Let's open it up to the public. Ivan?
Hello, Ivan Hennessy. given Fish's comments and the mention that it has previously been 9 members, is there any reason to have only 7 instead of 9 members as it's established for the first time?
Well, on that, if I can weigh in there, I was going to recommend an amendment to move it from 7 to 9.
Okay.
I actually, because my little number memory said 11, I pulled up the RTM minutes from last year, and if people remember, it was kind of a contentious process, and so there was, what I have here is that it's got a list of everyone that was voted onto a slate, and basically because there was too much interest, people had to stand up in support or not in support of people to get on the slate. And then the voting ceased after 11 members were voted onto the slate, which, this would need further information from David, but that to me communicates that potentially 4 people dropped out of that process if we're down to 7 now. I have further feelings on it, but I do think it's an ad hoc committee that we're establishing, so it's not falling under the same rules as the other ones. The finance advisory budget, or the advisory budget committee that we created at town meeting in place of the previous finance committee had been amended to hold 7 members. I'm not sure. David could probably tell us what their recommendation, the Human Service recommendation, had been to Charter Revision Commission as to what the size of their committee should be, because I think that's worth considering in terms of numbers. I know I've thrown out a lot of stuff here, but...
So before we go too much further, I'd like to say that we are on the simplest item of a 9-item agenda. And I think changing the number to a better number is sensible. Is there feedback on the number from the board, or specifically on the number from members of the public? Rick.
Rick Sprague, District 9. The whole purpose of this was to, as you kind of pointed out, to patch over between RTM, which the committee already did the work. It's an interim committee before some other system is established. It's just to finish up this little bit of work. It's the idea of adding new people doesn't make any sense. The fact that it is a short-term thing to finish this job that they started, allowing them to finish their work, means that, as David said, adding new people would complicate the process for a volunteer committee, which has already put in a whole lot of work. The people who want to become part of it later should get on the ballot, if that's the process, or whatever the process becomes next time.
Yes.
Which is later in the year, the same year. We're not talking about a normal committee that we're establishing and is going to perpetuate. This is just finishing up the work that RTM started, or their committee started.
Thank you. And it's worth pointing out that my understanding is that the work of this committee will probably be maybe one evening or one session of work to take the old division and make it work with the new number.
But it probably won't be if people who have not been familiar with the whole allocation process come on and want to fight about specific things because they didn't go through the whole process of reviewing the applications and then ranking them, which is what the rest of the committee has already had to do.
Certainly. Okay, members of the public with thoughts on the number. Andy and then Heidi. And then Robin.
I think, my name is Andy Davis. The budget at town meeting was reduced by 25%, which is a considerable number, and it speaks to the fact that I believe people want some different priorities incorporated in that. If it's simply running an algorithm, we could do it here on the back of an envelope tonight. I think town meeting spoke much more qualitatively than just quantitatively, and that there should be an opportunity for some new perspective on that committee for this year, and not just, to me, it's not just a bookkeeping project. It's starting to look at how to solidify in our budget and prioritize human service spending so we don't go through the contentious morass that has been plaguing this in our town for the last number of years. So I think it's a much more significant decision that was made at town meeting than just simply finish up some calculations. So I would recommend you go through your usual process. I'm not sure many people in town even know that this committee is a possibility to get involved in. And to reduce that number by 25% and just do it mathematically, I don't think is necessarily what town meeting was after. Thank you.
So just to clarify, the intent is not to just reduce all the numbers proportionally. The reason the committee needs to meet again is to do a full reallocation with a new total in mind. So, Heidi.
Heidi Fisher, District 7. I just had a question my question is, if RTM had not gone away and this committee had done the work and then the budget changed, it would be that same committee doing the work to make the changes, correct?
RTM would have appointed a new committee, I think, at that time. But so that's a little ambiguous.
Yeah, okay. Because I was going to ask if it was going to be the same group continuing that work anyway, then that's where I stand. Having heard what Andy just said and appreciating that, I think what Frick was saying about it will be open to being a different committee in the next iteration, and I think that's what I would think would be the most logical thing because of the amount of work it would take, as David said, to bring people up to speed to try to complete this process for this.
Thanks, Heidi. Yes, no.
I have a point of clarification. Because the Human Services Committee is not in a separate fund, these allocations will come back before us for approval. So I'm wondering that if there are people that are really specifically concerned about a specific allocation, and I will remind you that these committee meetings are open to the public, so just because someone isn't on the committee does not mean that they cannot come and speak to the committee or ask questions. Or hopefully preemptively read any of what's already been published about the work that the committee has done this year and watch the forum that they hosted through the Commons. Do we have the power to adjust individual allocations when it comes back to us, or will it be a slate for approval?
Oh, I think based on the wording of the town meeting warning, I think we would certainly have the ability to do that. It was recommended by the Human Services Committee and approved by the Select Board.
So I might suggest that we move for, again, my personal opinion, that we move forward with the existing committee membership. My only thought would be that for people that, if we want to consider changing appointments to that, I would really just emphasize that anyone who wants to come onto that committee should feel the due diligence of understanding all the work that has been previously done and reviewing that and not asking for that to be presented to them by the committee members. I personally do not feel that we should change the number and create an open process because I think this is extenuating circumstances and because I think that the Select Board has already kind of put the Human Service Committee through a whole rigmarole and back and forth for this budget process. The amount is really a matter of framing because it was reduced from what the Human Services Committee was working with as an allocation. It was greatly increased from what the warning item was. I know I'm drifting. That's just my opinion. Is I would say that there are avenues for input beyond committee membership. I think that to honor the work that this committee has done and to move forward in the process, I would stick with what's available, frankly, because none of the discussions prior to this, when we knew we were going into open town meeting, considered that. So it's just the constant, and another one. That's a rug. Another rug.
Thank you, Nell. So I'm going to go to Robin on Zoom, and we're going to bring it back to the board and make a decision about the number.
Yeah, thanks, Oscar. I just want to echo that I don't think people are really recognizing this as the committee needs to have one more meeting in order to finalize the funding recommendation. We're not starting a new committee with this motion. If people want to have a human services committee that does all of the work of reviewing grant applications for next year's budget, then the select board or someone needs to find a process of people joining that committee, which is not just appoint them. Okay, so the appointing step is only for allowing the committee that already has done like 40 hours of meetings to complete our work with one more meeting. So deciding to like view this as let's, recruit a new committee and have people join and read all 1,000 pages of applications is just not a realistic step to do at this time. So I think it's fine to just have the number be what Amanda said, the number of people currently on the committee, and the motion can be to appoint these people for one meeting and then figure out a new process. Thank you.
So just a quick point of clarification. So what we're doing is we're deciding on a group of people to have one meeting. So this appointment will end on June 30. Then a formation of another Human Services Committee will happen after that. Is that my understanding?
We are creating the committee for good. We are appointing them for this year, and then that's a great question.
Then we are going to reassess based off of what the Charter Revision Commission comes up with. They've told us whether or not it manifests this way. They've told us that they want to have something prepared for the fall. But that's where it's going to be reconsidered, was my understanding.
So I think we are starting to drift into greater realms of human services funding conversation, which I'd like us not to do. David, do you have a final thought on the number?
Seven is fine. But just a couple of things. One, Nell was pointing out that people certainly could come to the meeting, which we have not established when that's going to happen yet. And the thought is that we would have the kind of an open forum at that point to anybody in the public that wanted to talk to anyone about the committee as we talk about the process. It will not be simply cutting it by a quarter. I mean, I think I've been very vocal about that through all of the discussions we've had, that we need to go back and readdress the needs and how the needs of the town are going to be met by the people and by the organizations, and get down to the 350. If all we have to do is cut it by 25%, life will be easy, and you have the number, and off we go. That is not the case. But what we'll do at the meeting is that we'll have a kind of an open session, and then we'll go into a deliberative session, as we've been advised to do, to give and to have the final discussion and the allocation after that. Just wanted to kind of lay out what the format of the meeting, which Nell identified, and what it might be.
Thanks, David. So I see the hand online, but I said I was going to bring it back to the board for a decision. Final comments. I feel like I have consistently made the commitment publicly that my intention was to reappoint the same committee, which is 7. Is 7 the number for that group?
Yes.
So my preference is to stay at 7, but this would certainly be the opportunity for a motion to amend, if anyone wishes to change the number.
Motion
if
to 9.
A formal motion to amend to 9?
Well, I thought that's what I heard.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's, it does seem a little futile to do that just for one meeting. But I would like to see moving forward that that this committee does serve the full 9 moving forward, I think. But
Do you need to pull back your amendment?
It wasn't clear to me that it was a formal motion. If it was, then you can withdraw it with the unanimous consent of the board. But it may not have been. I'm going to rule that it was not a formal motion. If there is a formal motion to amend, it is certainly welcome. Bob, yes.
If I can just, what you're voting on first and foremost is the establishment of the committee.
Yes.
So establishing the number doesn't necessarily mean that you need to fill the entire slate of that if your appointment is going to be for a time period like, let's say, ending June 30th. And then you get into the new fiscal year, you can go through a whole new process or the same process, not to establish the committee, but to appoint new members. And all the talk of the Charter Review Commission working on it, yes, they're working on it. It's unlikely that that charter will be passed in time for next year's open town meeting. So you're probably going to be appointing members for the Human Service Committee that you're establishing to deal with next year.
I would propose that this is something that we can change with a simple vote at any point between now and forever. So in the interests of moving forward, I would suggest we keep it at 7 and then we adjust as needed.
That sounds good to me.
Any final discussion by the board? Okay, so who made the motion? Amanda?
I did.
Amanda has moved.
And we've deemed that mine.
Yes, but only because I wasn't sure. If you want to make an official amendment.
No, I'm just.
Okay.
Just want to be clear.
Okay. Amanda has moved to establish a town human services committee consisting of 7 members for the purpose of making recommendations to the select board regarding allocation of human services funds in the town budget. All in favor, please say aye.
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 All opposed? Any abstentions? 5-0. Thank you. Okay. Item B. Announcement of committee vacancies. This will actually probably be the simplest thing we have. Okay. So these are a list of town committees that are vacant. There are a number of different ones that all serve different roles throughout the town. Anyone who's interested in applying for any of these committees can do so on the town website and also in person. Is that right?
In the town manager's office.
In the town manager's office in person. And then, as we're going to do later in the meeting, from time to time, we'll consider applications and make appointments to the committees. So here are the current vacancies on town committees. The ADA Advisory Committee has 4 vacancies. The Arts Committee has 1. The Advisory Budget Committee has all 7. The Conservation Commission has 2. The Design Review Committee alternate, 1 vacancy. Development Review Board alternate, 2 vacancies. Energy Committee, 1. Fence Viewer, 2 vacancies. Honor Roll, 3 vacancies. Human Services Committee, 7 vacancies. Inspector of Lumber, Shingles, and Wood, 1 vacancy. Planning Commission, 1 vacancy. And what was the one that we all agreed at town meeting never did anything? Is that?
That's not on here.
Not on here. Great. Okay. So anyone interested in those, please apply. It's a great way to get involved in town government. I think a lot of people who are more involved now got involved that way. Certainly I did. Okay. Moving ahead to the FY26 February budget update. John, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, Oscar, we have financial reports in the board's backup materials for the 8 months ending February 2026, with 67% of the fiscal year completed. In the general fund, cumulative revenues raised represent 102% of the annual budget. Annualizing the property taxes shows that we've raised 75% of budget. Expenditures currently represent 70% of the annual budget, but when you prorate that, we're at 66% of the annual budget, slightly below expected. Total revenues are running at $25,480,159, and total expenses are running at $17,435,186, leaving a current surplus of just over $8 million. Cash balances as of February 28, 2026 within the general fund total $33,154,759. EMS revenue of $879,908 represents 100% of the FY26 revenue, with 67% of the year completed. Annualized, we can expect to see $1,319,862 of revenue during the fiscal year. This will exceed our approved budget for EMS revenue by $438,621. Receivable calcs are based on 38% of total outstanding receivables, and on average, we've been collecting 39% of our charges. Fire overtime is currently over budget by $266,172, which is offset by underspending of staff salary lines. Same with police overtime. It's currently over by $70,715, also offset by underspending of staff salary lines. In the utilities fund, with 67% of the year completed, revenues raised represent 67% of the annual budget. Expenditures are at 42% of the annual budget, and when we prorate those, they're at 40% of the annual budget. Total revenues in the utilities fund are $4,754,699. Total expenses are $3,012,999, giving us a surplus in the utility fund of $1.7 million. In the parking fund, revenues are 51% of the annual budget, and expenditures are at 58%. When we prorate expenditures in the parking fund, they are at 56% of the annual budget. Total revenues are at $520,101, and total expenses are at $588,706, giving us a deficit in the parking fund of $68,605. A couple things to note there in the parking fund are that the workers' comp is over budget due to updated calculations that when we receive new rates, and revenues are running less than expected based on the projected budget. There's also a loan report, a grant report, a transfer report, and reserve fund balances report in your backup, and I'm happy to try to answer any questions that you have about the budget.
Thank you very much, John.
Welcome.
I will go to my board members first. Nell, any questions or comments?
I'm okay for right now.
Great. Peter?
No, I'm good.
Amanda?
Yes, I'm going to just ask kind of a maybe not so
Please.
smart question. Correct me if I'm wrong. So this is reporting till February 28th, so that is the beginning of the third quarter of our fiscal year.
No, it's the second month of the third quarter, the end of the second month of the third quarter.
Right.
Yep.
Okay. So we're not quite. So okay. And then also, when can we expect the next one?
You can expect the next one at your second meeting in May, and that will be through the end of March.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Amanda. Isaac, any comments?
Okay, question about the general fund. And if you already said this, if you could repeat it, where do you expect us to be by the end of the fiscal year based on where we are at now in terms of surplus or deficit?
I did not say that. I don't have a projection of that, but I will say that with 67% of the fiscal year completed, expenditures are running slightly below that, so we're in good shape on the expenditure side so far. And revenues are at 75%, so revenues are doing very well in the general fund.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Isaac. Just, I don't know if I have questions so much as notes. We saw Last month, we were looking at EMS collection rate that was down to 35 or something, and we like that, and we were all worried about it. It is back to 39. We talked to Bonnie, and our theory was that the last one overlapped with the holidays, and that possibly there were just delays in processing. But 39 is more than 38, which is our projection, so that seems solid. John, where do we stand with the audit?
We are still, so with the audit, we are under contract, as you know. We received an email, I think, last week from the audit company. We're on their list of towns that they're auditing. They have changed the point of contact in the firm. We don't really know what that means, but maybe that is that they have assigned it to somebody and they're going to be moving forward. The town has done all of the pre-work on that so that it can be as quick a process as possible for the firm to go through the books.
Great, thank you. Mm-hmm. And then on the parking side, still a deficit. We're still hoping that when it warms up and people start using it more, it picks up, but we will continue to monitor. And then, I said this last time, but hopefully nobody gets too excited about the surplus in the utilities fund, because we're doing that on purpose to save up for future capital expenses. So I wouldn't want anyone accidentally feeling good about something.
Well, that is good. So,
it is good that we're doing it, yes.
Are there any theories why the parking revenues are at a hiccup?
No, I don't. I mean, we did, as you know, we did a number of free days during December, but that was built into the budget, so this is really below what we projected. I don't recall what we anticipated for revenues for rentals in the transportation center. That may be down a little bit. I'm not sure from what we planned, but don't really have a great sense beyond that.
Do we have a sense at the parking side? Obviously we'd expect winter to be slower. Are we behind? Do we know if we're behind pace based on that? Maybe that's a question.
Year over year, I have not seen a report.
Okay.
Year over year, but we could ask if that could be developed, if it would be helpful for you.
Okay. I am not asking for that this time.
Thank you.
Okay. Questions from the public on the February finance report? Can't really believe nobody, but seeing none. Oh, everyone liked it. Great. Seeing no comments, we are going to move ahead to the solid waste update and ordinance change. Yes.
And I would just introduce it and ask Assistant DPW Director Pete Lynch to come to the table. We have an update here, which Pete will give you on the contracting for this upcoming fiscal year's solid waste, and also a first reading of some ordinance revisions that would be necessary to implement the program that you've approved thus far. Pete?
Great, thank you.
Good evening, folks. Thank you again for having me. And Stephen Dotson is also on Zoom with us. Stephen will be joining in on the second part of the conversation as it relates to the ordinance. Back in November, we had some long discussions about what solid waste looked like, and that was after several months of negotiating with Casella and doing a lot of work in-house to understand what trash, recycling, and compost pickup and disposal could look like in town. Following our November meeting, when you asked us to move forward, both with Casella and a contract, and to take on the responsibility of compost by the town and some other changes, we identified 49 initiatives that needed to take place in order for us to really hit day one of the changes moving forward. And those were in about 9 specific categories. And those changes, those initiatives were taken on largely by DPW, but so many different offices, associations worked with us to get us to where we are tonight, including planning, DPW, the town attorney, finance, HR, our union, the town manager, and some citizens from town that stepped in to help us out. So a large group has been working on how do we get from what was conceptual to actually physically being on the street on July 1. So our next milestone really is July 1 of this year. Tonight I'm here to talk about two separate things. The first is a contract, and the second is the town ordinance. So when we met in November, we got approval from you folks to sign a contract with Casella. We continue negotiations with Casella on some small issues right up until a few weeks ago when we finally came to an agreement that seemed to work for both the town and Casella. And in doing so, there were some minor changes that I'd like to share with you about the contract and about how we're going to do business moving forward. So initially, we had talked to you about a contract that would be 42 months long, and we were hoping to start that January 1 of this year. And because of negotiations, we weren't able to start the contract on January 1. However, our agreement shows a contract that will go from today until the beginning of FY27. So the contract will end next June 30th. So we have a one-year contract with Casella. And what are the differences from what we talked about last time? So Casella will continue to take on two streams for us. Those are trash and recycling. They'll continue to do manual pickup of trash, and that's under our pay-as-you-throw program. As you know, we had conversations about the bag pricing. That has gone into effect, and we're good there. The second was that Casella would recycle. Now, when I talked to you in November, we were talking about doing automated collection of recycling, and that involved about a $300,000 purchase of carts for 4,388 residents to allow them to have automated pickup. In this current contract, there is no automated pickup. Our recycling will continually to be picked up manually by Casella, which means if you have bins that you're using now, they are still good for the next 14 months. You need change nothing in terms of recycling. When we met with you back in November, we did say that recycling would move from once a week to once every other week. And in fact, in this contract, that will hold true. So both trash and recycling will be picked up every other week. And our initial meetings with Casella show that they will be picked up on the same day. So if your trash day is on Monday of an A week, your recycling pickup will be on Monday of an A week. And if you're on a B week, same would happen. Trash and recycling would take place on the same day. This contract includes collection of downtown trash cans and the municipal dumpsters, and it does not include compost. Compost will be picked up by the town, and we are on schedule to start pickup of compost by using town personnel on July 1 of this coming year. So those are contractually, those are the changes that we made. The contract has been signed, and as we're asking for you tonight just to ratify that decision. And I'm wondering if I could answer some questions now on this, and then we could move to the ordinance after, if that was appropriate.
Yeah. How does the board feel about this? We could discuss this now and then have a motion to ratify and then move to the ordinance.
Right, and you don't need a motion on the ordinance because
Right.
it's a first reading, so it's probably appropriate what Pete's suggesting.
Okay, great. So let's start with the board.
Yeah.
Amanda?
Sure. I don't have a question. What I really want to offer is an enormous amount of gratitude to you, Pete, and to Dan, and for your innovation in developing the composting program and your stick-to-itiveness in continuing to renegotiate with Casella for something that's going to really serve our town for this period of time. not getting those recycling carts at this time, all of this, thank you.
A huge effort by a lot of people put into this, including Casella. We kept coming to the table, and we finally came up with something that we could all work with. Our town attorney sat at a lot of different discussions, so a lot of people, but thank you very much. It's very kind words.
Isaac?
Ditto. And just want to clarify that there's really one change for users, and that's for the people of Brattleboro, and that's that there's going to be recycling pickup every 2 weeks instead of every 1 week. As far as I can tell, that's the only change besides the fact that in terms of this contract, and that will be starting July 1st and go for 12 months. So starting this July 1st. I got that right?
You did. In fact, I should have mentioned that. The actual recycling change does not start until July 1. So the way the pickup is happening right now will continue until June 30, and then that swap will take place on July 1.
So basically, you've been able to maintain fairly consistent service with this contract. We're looking at avoiding any major interruption of anything for people who are using the curbside pickup. And I think that's great, because from the information I got from all of the work that's been done over the multiple years by town staff is that was with the 400 people who responded to these surveys, that generally people wanted consistency. And I know that there was a lot of effort to try to bring down the cost to the municipality, and that we were looking at some much higher numbers before, and I appreciate that work, and I'm really supportive of this contract. Thank you.
Thanks, Isaac. Peter?
Again, hats off. I mean, I for one, personally will, for the past 2 years, moving forward, I'm not sure what we'll talk about at these meetings anymore. But I'm sure we'll find something. Just to point of clarification, though, we were talking trash, we're talking recycling. Compost is also every other week, or is that every week?
Compost will continue to be weekly. That'll be picked up by the town. I think I don't know if it's appropriate or not, but I'm going to put in a pitch if I can. Those green 13-gallon containers that you see all over the place, if you don't have one and you'd like one as part of the compost pickup, they're easily identifiable for those folks from the town that will be coming through. They work well for us for pickup, and we'd encourage people to consider purchasing those.
Thank you, Pete.
And where could those be purchased?
Downstairs at the finance office. They do have them on hand, and I think they are $35 a cart, but I would want to clarify that before I said that for sure. It's somewhere in that neighborhood.
So that's here in the municipal building?
That's correct.
Thank you. Peter, any other comments?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
No?
On the town website, the compost bins are currently listed for $30. Recycling bins are currently listed for $15. It's not news. This isn't the first time we're hearing this, but I'm so glad that we're not buying the carts for the automated pickup. I'm really glad that we can spend our revolving loan fund monies elsewhere. And the only question I had was, do we know what day compost pickup will be, and how that will intersect with existing schedules?
We're going to try and mirror what Casella is doing. So it is our hope, if you put trash and recycling out, you also put compost out, and on the odd week you do the same. But we hope to be there the same day that the residents would be putting out their recycling and their trash.
That's great. Thank you.
Great, thanks. And everyone's already said it, but the staggering amount of work that you guys did over the course of years behind the scenes, really very much appreciated. Everyone on staff who worked on this.
Thank you.
And I'm just going to weigh in. I just think that this finally came to fruition in the best possible way that it could. You know, I think it just checked a lot of boxes. And again, I just can't emphasize, everybody up here has said it, the tremendous amount of work that town staff did to make this happen. So again, thank you.
All right, let's open it up to the public. Rick.
Rick Sprite. First of all, I want to put in a pitch to the public, which will save us money in the long haul and save themselves money if they can share compost bins with neighbors. That will make it one pickup instead of several, which would be good for you guys and would save the $30 or $35 on a bin. So anybody who can work together, encourage that. I would also like to highlight this as an example of what can happen even when we have a single bidder and where we can come out with a much better outcome. I think this is a good pattern that we could apply to many other single bidder situations, which we seem to run into. And, continue to negotiate and push back and try and find a better deal than we've been getting with our single bidders in the past.
Thank you. Other comments? Seeing none, I would, seeing one. Heidi.
Heidi Fisher. One quick question. Could you just say what the numbers are, what it cost, what the initial number was, and where we are now? Or is that too hard of a question? Thank you.
I'm not comfortable giving you a number now, but the savings, as I remember, was around a little over $200,000.
More than that from
probably by the time we were done, it was.
Yes.
Is that's from the budget, whereas the not having to buy the bins from the loan fund is a whole other savings?
That's
larger.
very true.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Great. I do see Stephen on there.
No, he's next. So
he's next.
Wanted
Okay.
to a motion.
Great. So bring it back to the board. I would entertain a motion.
Is this? Okay. All right, I'll motion to ratify the decision to sign a contract with Casella Waste Management, Inc. for the manual curbside pickup and disposal of solid waste and recycling for the term to end June 30th, 2027.
Thank you. Peter has made a motion to ratify the decision to sign a contract with Casella Waste Management, Inc. for the manual curbside pickup and disposal of solid waste and recycling for a term to end June 30th, 2027. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
That's 5-0. Thank you.
I'm sorry to be that guy, but could I please go to the bathroom really fast?
Sure. Why don't we take our 2-hour recess now? How does that sound?
2 hours?
A 2-hour recess? Wow.
You heard him. You heard him. See you tomorrow.
Yeah.
After 2 hours, we will take a 10-minute recess. We will pick up where we left off with the solid waste ordinance. Yep.
Thank you. So as part of the transition, we realized that the ordinance needed some adjusting. While there aren't major changes in the ordinance, we did a review and then asked legal to look at it and asked planning to look at it as well. Stephen is going to share the changes with you. Stephen was the biggest contributor in this ordinance change. He's going to review it with you. In your backup material, there are two versions. One is a red line version, and the other is what the new version would look like. We're going to update the new version in the next couple of weeks, or in the next couple of days, just to show some formatting changes. Nothing that should relate to content necessarily, but there will be some formatting changes. So if you don't mind, I'd like to turn it over to Stephen to talk about what those ordinance changes are.
Please.
Hey, thanks, Pete. And can you all hear me?
Yep.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. I apologize. I'm a little bit under the weather, but thank you for hearing us out here. This is the first of 2 required ordinance readings. This particular ordinance has not been changed since 2018, when the state shifted its recycling law. And so the previous ordinance was very focused on that shift and specific to recycling. And in this case, we are remedying that in a way to include a diversity of haulers, including the town as its own hauler for compost, which is different, as well as a number of other details that I'll get into in a moment. But as Pete alluded to, we couldn't have done this without help from legal, fire, planning, to make sure it's appropriate. And we've been trying to invent it in a way that remains flexible for the future. So some of the changes you'll see will reflect just trying to be a little bit more open-ended around things like adhering to state regulations that may change over time. That's one of the things that we did. I also want to emphasize and thank the board for recognizing that we don't have to change much here, because we are and have underlined the importance of maintaining the same level of service and minimizing the level of behavior change. So what's going on is not very different from what people have experienced previously. The real fact is that we're taking over some parts and the schedule is changing slightly, and the prices for bags have already gone up, and that's been going smoothly. So I'd like to move into the bulleted list that you found in the warning that really hammers out the different changes. We eliminated a number of definitions in the ordinance that were no longer relevant. We were trying to improve clarity and directness and how we define things like solid waste and the different streams. We adjusted the specific details of curbside collection schedules and requirements to meet what the town needs in order to provide service. And we diversified and tried to leave more open the reference destination of different streams, because it's not specific to Wyndham Solid Waste or Casella universally. We talked about tweaking kind of the guidance for how people communicate and interact with the town as the provider for curbside compost, and that is incorporated, as well as distinctions between curbside compost and the private haulers. In essence, because nothing much is changing, I don't have a lot of substantive things to tell you about this. I will say there were previous licensing requirements that haulers were supposed to follow with the town, and we apparently had no one that actually licensed and registered with us. So it was a redundant service that we need to discontinue, and that was eliminated from it. We did increase the rates associated in violations and fines, but all of that is kind of consistent with the increased fines and revenue requirements for the town and departments. It's not unusual or outside the norm here. And like I said before, the previous ordinance referenced specific state statutes in specific years, and now we have references that basically state that we need to adhere to state law regarding solid waste, recycling, compost, etc., no matter what the current law is. So, that's basically it. As the sustainability guy, I will just say I do believe we reached a solution that maintains the balance between, I'm really glad we have pay-as-you-throw bags still. I'm really glad we avoided going into automation with carts and being in a proprietary system, no matter whose it is. And I think having agency over nutrients locally will continue to be both a source of pride and something that saves us money in the long run, because it really, I believe in the economics of the town doing it itself. So I'll leave it there. But if people need to know one thing about the changes coming, it is that you may need another recycling bin, right? If it goes to every other week, you may have more over 2 weeks than you do on one. And that's the biggest shift that people may experience. And so I would encourage folks to get ahead of that, and I'll leave it there. So thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. Before we have our official first reading public hearing, let me just bring it back to the board for any questions about the ordinance changes. I, at the moment, have none. Peter?
I have none. I'd like to, kind of get back on track because we've got some other important stuff to do.
Great. No? Amanda?
I'll just remind everyone that this is the first reading. We're going to have 2 more readings. There will be more time to flush it out when we have more time.
One more.
We'll only have 1 more other reading. Okay.
2 readings.
The first reading is just a reading. It's not a hearing. It's at your second reading that you have a hearing and then you adopt the change.
Okay, so I don't need to open or close anything.
Hearing tonight. It's more to put the public on notice that there are these changes. They can go on the website, though I wait a day or two till we update that final version. And then at your next meeting, you'll have the second reading and hearing on it. So if people want to participate in that hearing, obviously, they're welcome to do.
Great.
And what I'll note for the public is, there's actually a lot of really valuable information in here, like what you can put in your recycling bin and what you can't. For example, I just read you can't put a greasy pizza box in your recycling bin. So this is a real educational opportunity, and I hope everyone takes advantage of this opportunity when we have our first official reading.
Thank you, Amanda. Isaac, any comments?
Nope.
No comments. Okay, great. Well, let's open it up to the public for questions. I see Gary online.
I'm having issues with my camera. I just want to say it's a great presentation, Stephen. This question, will you still be able to hold your meeting? I know you're under the weather. Prayers go out at the library for the solar array.
Gary, I think that might be a little off topic, and maybe thumbs up says Steve.
It's just important for us to know if we're going to be still proceeding. But he has a thumb up. Just want to thank you. Awesome. Great. Feel better.
Great. Thank you, Gary. Any other questions about the ordinance? Seeing none. No action today.
Nope.
So thank you, Pete.
Thanks, Pete. Thank you all
very much. And we'll move onwards. Stormwater utility.
For this one, I would invite Sue Fillion and Dan Tyler up to the side table to talk a little bit about the idea of developing a stormwater utility. This is something that we've been talking about for some time as a possibility. There are pros and cons to it, and I know several board members have been interested in this possibility, so we thought that having Dan and Sue be available to answer your questions might help the board decide whether this is a priority that you wish us to pursue now, or something that you want to have on a list to address at some point. And anyways, just where you might prioritize this is maybe something that the board wants to address in the context of your retreat on the 30th, to think about where this kind of initiative might fit into your overall priorities for other things that you have an interest in staff spending time on. But now is a good opportunity to hear a little bit about the possibility.
Great, thank you. And I'll also note, I think we should have State Senator Wendy Harrison on Zoom to talk a little bit about it from the state level afterwards. Yes, Isaac.
Yeah, I just wanted to check about the agenda, because I see we're about 50 minutes, like 50 minutes behind schedule, and yep. I know we're set to adjourn at 9:10, and just wanted to see if there is what your thoughts are in terms of the agenda for the rest of the evenings, so we know, because I know there are some people here who want to speak to things that are at the end of the agenda.
That's a good question. Let's take 5 minutes to discuss this. Well, maybe not 5, but are there any changes anyone wants to suggest, or agenda items that we want to consider proactively leaving to a next meeting. Other than that, I don't know.
I'll say that specifically, I'm really excited to hear about the Stormwater Utility Initiative, as well as the procurement policy. And the things that I know that people here want to talk about are the Motel program and the EMS, the town meeting requested EMS study. So I wanted to see if there's a time sensitivity around the Stormwater Utility Initiative and the procurement policy.
Is Wendy on Zoom? Did she make
She
time?
is. There is a little around stormwater. This has been coming for a minute. And procurement policy?
I mean, it would be a good idea to have the procurement policy approved, so as we're doing federal grants, but if you wanted to postpone it or table it to your next meeting, I don't think that would be the end of the world, but I also think you could do it pretty quickly.
Okay.
Great. If we can do these things quickly, then that's great.
Great. Thank you, Isaac. Okay, so let me turn it over to Dan and Sue. Or, I'm sorry, I don't mean to put you on the spot. Would you prefer to hear questions from the board, or is there a little bit of an overview you can give us on what's been done already?
Yeah, I think we can give a little overview. So stormwater utility would operate essentially like our water and sewer utility. It's a method of billing people for their impact to the stormwater that is produced on their property. Back in 2021, DPW engaged with Stephen Associates and did a kind of basic feasibility study. A lot of questions came up. There was a lot of information that we still needed, we felt, before we could move forward with it. Planning has done a lot of work in the stormwater realm and received some grants. We've kind of put some of those pieces together. We talked a little bit about this during the budget process. I think we're getting to the point where we could move it forward. I think at this point it's really capacity and expertise. It would be a matter of bringing someone on, a consultant or something, to move the effort forward if that was the route we wanted to go.
Yeah, so a stormwater utility could support capital improvements that are specific stormwater related, street sweeping, catch basin cleaning, green infrastructure, any permit compliance that we might need to have, such as the municipal roads general permit that DPW works on. Those are the types of things that the utility could fund. So in setting it up, that's pretty complicated. Well, it would be a lengthy process. We'd need to hire a consultant. They would need to be evaluating the stormwater surfaces on each parcel and coming up with, we'd be looking at our needs, and then we'd be looking at how much revenue are we trying to generate. In terms of, I can just leave it there. That process would at least be a year, we think, of a consultant time doing that.
Great, thank you. Let me go a little high level and just frame sort of why my interest in this and why I think it could be useful for the town. Public Works mostly, and maybe some other departments, does a lot of work now that could fall under the purview of a stormwater utility, right? Like repairs and the sort of things you described. I've looked at some other towns, and some of those amounts in the stormwater utility budget could move, over $1 million out of, it varies depending on the town, but out of the general fund and into the utility budget. The utility is then paid by fees that are levied on people proportional to the amount of impervious surface they have, which is mostly parking lots and paving and things like that. If that was it would be sort of interesting, but not particularly exciting, because we'd just be exchanging taxation for a fee structure. But what stormwater utilities allow for is organizations that aren't normally taxed or taxable by the town would have to contribute. Specifically, the big single contributor would be the state, because state roads and their responsibility for the interstate are huge impervious surfaces. They would pay a large amount into the stormwater utility, and this would be new money entering the town budget to pay for things we already do, coming from a new source. So that is the root of my interest in this. There's a great deal more complexity there, and it's entirely possible I've gotten bits of that wrong. But that's the reason I think, $100,000 plus in money coming from the state to Brattleboro is the thing that has made this something I find really interesting.
And our mechanism to get that? We just send them a bill?
The mechanism is we set up a stormwater utility, and there's legislation around it that, would dictate the way it works. But yeah, we would essentially bill them at a reduced rate. The state pays a reduced rate, and we would send them a bill proportional to the amount of basically impervious surfaces they have in our town.
Yeah, the work I've done on stormwater stuff, it is intriguing. Like, you go back and forth. It's really easy to like it and hate it and like it. But again, as we just are watching a proposed gas tax thing, kind of feels like it's dying. I don't know how much effort we want to have town staff kind of focus on this at this juncture, anyway.
So yeah, let's go around the board, and then if Wendy's around, I'd like to give her a chance to speak.
Yeah,
Amanda.
I'll be brief. Because one way we can move on to the next agenda item is to also agree as a board to bring this up at our retreat, as John had suggested, to flesh it out in more detail. One thing I want to note that both Dan and Oscar said fees for people, but it's actually cool because they're fees for, it could be organizations. You could be a nonprofit, you could be a hospital, you could be a business, box store, whatever. You also have to pay into the stormwater utility. So, am I right?
That's correct.
It's everybody, which is kind of cool.
And a lot of times
because
those
we have
are the
a
larger
lot of
impacts.
nonprofits in our community that it would be nice to have some way to get revenue. And also, I would, if Wendy comes on, my understanding is that time might be of the essence because the state is also working currently on a program, and if we could be grandfathered in as a municipality to get these monies, that might be important to do at this time. But maybe that's a rumor.
My understanding from Wendy and others is that yes, that time is somewhat of the essence, and yes, that if we set up our own utility first, it would continue to exist. So it wouldn't just be absorbed into a state. Isaac, do you have any questions?
Not at this time. Thank you.
Peter?
No, I'm good.
No?
Sorry. I think an important clarification, too, off of what Peter said, is what we're looking to do is set up something that there's already the allowance for within state law to set up, and we're actually looking to set it up potentially before state law changes relative to the fuel tax, which was new legislation attempted to be introduced and stalled out. So that's, it's, I think, important to understand that.
Thanks.
I have one other question, and could be a question for Dan and Sue or John. Could we have numbers on what consultant rates would be and what that budget item could be when we meet for our retreat on April 30th?
I believe Dan was looking into what some other towns have spent on this. That's a concern. I think you're right. Like, the cost of setting this up is significant, and we could probably charge some of that back to the utility, but that's another thing we'd have to look into. It's more the sense that, we would be setting up a new bureaucracy to manage this, so we would need to be managing and understanding impervious services and how they change. So we would need somebody to do that. We would need somebody to basically do a lot of GIS work for us, whether that's contract or an employee. We would need to do billing. We would need to do collections, all the things that are part of setting up a utility like this. Again, we could charge that all back to the utility ratepayers, and the state would pay some of it, but also all the property owners in town would also be paying into doing that process. So I think there's a lot for the board to think about, like whether you want to take this on or not. But I don't know, Dan, if you've had any conversations with other towns who've said this.
Yeah, I don't have any, firm numbers, but in talking to a contact that's done this a couple times, it's usually, he said it's usually runs about $50,000 to $75,000 for, and that really depends on how elaborate of your program you choose. I mean, there's different billing methods, and we could get down to measuring the actual impervious surface on a parcel, or we could do a more general fee, and that would be cheaper to launch, but, harder to sell kind of to the people. And then there's the billing end of it and the finance end of it. We have a utility billing software now, but we only have about 3,000 utility customers, so all the other remaining parcels in town would have to be added to that. We'd have to buy into another module of that software. So there's an expense there, $15,000, $20,000 probably. And then the question is staffing. Yep. Do we need more billing people? Do we need a stormwater person to run this program, kind of thing?
Yeah, and it's worth saying I'm not, I wouldn't describe myself as some sort of fervent true believer on this. If the numbers pencil out, then it's new revenue. If they don't, then we shouldn't do it. So I think we all want to find a model that works. Do you see Wendy? And if not, okay. Thank you, Seth.
I have a question.
Yes, Seth.
You mentioned the $50,000 to $75,000. Was that for initial startup or annual costs, or what is that?
It's kind of like program design and development costs.
Yeah, so it's the startup
right.
cost. Although at some point there would have to be a recalibration, or as development happens, I would think. And whether that could be done in-house or we'd have to have a consultant on, I think remains to be seen.
We don't have like a dedicated GIS person or anyone with the GIS expertise that it would take to keep the program up, so there'd probably be ongoing costs at some.
Great, thank you.
Oh, there's
yes. Wendy, welcome.
Yes, thank you. And Mr. Chair, you had a really good explanation of stormwater utilities. I'm just going to add a couple other things. What's one of the things that's really good about them, I think, and fair, is that they have a built-in incentive to reduce your impervious, and typically you would have a base rate for most of the residential units, so that you wouldn't be measuring residential units separately, because that would get very complicated. But for the larger properties, commercial properties that have very, huge parking lots they don't use, they would have a financial incentive to reduce that. And so that would reduce our stormwater, which is really important when we have flooding. A couple of other things, you can use the revenue for restoration of floodplains. And one reason that I support them, stormwater utilities, is it took us 10 years to do the Melrose restored floodplain, and I think that's something that we need to keep current on. The establishment is certainly the most challenging part and the most expensive part, but once it is established, typically you don't need a GIS person, and when someone wants, like for example, in the example of a parking lot, often the utility will have the person who wants the savings to do the calculations and just provide the information to the town, and then the town verifies it. What else? It's only parcels that generate stormwater off of the parcels that pay this. So if there's a property that's not developed, that doesn't have any stormwater coming off of it, the owner of that parcel does not pay. And you did say that it is similar to a water utility, where if you pay, if you use water, you pay a fee that is proportional to that water. And we just use a different measurement. We use impervious. And one of the, there's a regional stormwater utility process going on now, which I am going to all of the meetings because I want to make sure that towns will still have the ability to initiate stormwater utilities and that they don't lose that ability, which hopefully won't be the case, but we don't know for sure until that happens. What else? And definitely there would be funding from the state that we're not getting now from the interstate. So for towns with an interstate, it really does make sense, in my opinion. So that's where I am, and I'll send you some more information. We just had testimony in one of my committees today about stormwater utilities, and I'll send you that testimony because it was relative to the effort of the state to possibly stop towns from being able to do this. And I'm also looking at ways to fund towns, to fund that initiation process so that they can make it happen.
Great. Thank you, Wendy.
Sure.
All right. I'd like to open it up to the public briefly. Frick? And then Sue?
This is kind of exciting. This is the kind of geeky thing I'm used to hearing from towns like Boston at conferences where they're talking about ways to mitigate stormwater. I am hoping that in the process, other sorts of mitigation besides just reducing pavement might be considered as valuable, like green roofs or stormwater storage for irrigation purposes or other purposes. It's been used for flushing toilets in some places. I have done some stormwater work on one of my properties and included a dry well to mitigate the amount of stormwater that I put off. As a matter of fact, I think the way it's set up, if the town stormwater drain gets full enough, it backs up into my dry well, and I actually absorb some of the town stormwater that way. But anyway, I'm looking forward to seeing how it develops. Hopefully you're considering ways to encourage the residents to mitigate it in more creative ways as well.
Thank you. Sue?
Susan Belleville, Brattleboro. So my knee-jerk reaction is you're talking about every single parcel in the town of Brattleboro being charged a fee for impervious surfaces. So because I don't know enough about it, I have not been paying attention to this piece. I guess my question is, if anyone can answer it, my house occupies approximately 90% of my lot. That's an impervious surface, my house is. So would I be charged a larger fee because my lot has too much impervious surface? The other day, after that nasty little rainstorm that we got, I went down towards William Street and noticed that there was a significant amount of runoff from the hill, from erosion, from the non-pervious surfaces into the middle of the road. How do we deal with that kind of issue if we're trying to eliminate impervious surfaces pretty much everywhere in town? It discourages people from having doing some improvements to their property. And I get it. I get that we need to have an appropriate handling for stormwater to mitigate some of the additional issues that come with that runoff. But I really, 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 really don't want another tax right now. I really don't want another tax on my property or on my income or anything. Thank you.
Thank you, Sue.
I think
Oh,
Wendy's
Wendy,
up again.
do you have
I
a-
think she has a comment on that.
You're still muted, Wendy.
Yep. Okay, and I'm lowering my hand. Sue, those are great comments. Single-family homes would typically be assessed at all the same amount because it really would be very complicated to do otherwise. And in the other stormwater utilities in the state, it's less than $100 per year. And what the municipalities typically do when they implement a stormwater utility is they reduce the property tax in acknowledgement of the stormwater utility fee taking the place of the property tax in some properties, because it's really important that it's not seen as a tax. That's critical. So there's a lot of public outreach in advance, and it's important to know that more properties will be paying this than pay taxes, because properties that are not taxable do generate stormwater, and they would pay based on their stormwater.
Thanks,
Is that clear? Does that make sense?
Yes, I think so. Thank you. And to just close the circle on that, in terms of the offset between the fee and property tax, in a big picture way, we would be taking expenses out of the general fund, putting them into the utility fund. Those expenses would get paid for one way or the other, but there would be the state paying into the utility in a different way. Yes, Sue, and then we'll bring it back to the board.
I apologize, but I was on a school board once, and I jumped up and down with glee whenever I thought that there was going to be an opportunity to shift something and make it look like somebody wasn't getting a tax increase. So I don't believe that one bit. Thank you.
Okay. Bringing it back to the board, Amanda, you had a suggestion that we put this on our retreat discussion and move forward. How does that sound?
Yes, do you need a motion?
I don't think so.
No.
No.
If people are good to move ahead to the next item?
Sounds good.
Is there any is there any relevancy in asking for a motion or direction to look into some of the initial startup costs to be prepared for the retreat?
Sure.
You don't really need a motion
Okay.
for that, but if you want to direct us to do what we can between now and the 30th, we do the best that we could, given other obligations that Dan has.
We can do that by head nods, and if it's controversial, a motion would be appropriate.
Well, it sounds like what's important is to caveat that with an understanding of everything else that's on the department's table. And the vibe I'm getting is that to put your expectations in line with the busy season. So I'm receptive to the vibe.
There's not a lot of time between
Yeah,
now
and I
and the
don't.
30th.
If there's existing work to pull together into a pile,
Yeah,
I think that would be helpful. But.
Yep.
And then, I mean, perhaps those of us on the board can privately correspond with Wendy to understand the timeline we might be up against. I think what's really important to note is that exploring it is like such an early step in terms of implementing it or any concerns, right? Like everything Sue is being brought up, everything that Sue is bringing up would be fleshed out through the process of figuring out the implementation. So.
Great. Okay, so we'll put that on the list for the retreat and say thanks to Sue and Dan and move on. Thank you both. Okay, procurement policy.
Super quickly, when the town procures services or supplies using federal funds, there are public procurement standards that we have to meet to satisfy the requirements of those grants. This policy was put together to be able to for the town to be able to show that we do these things. It's pretty straightforward. It's based on model procurement policy. The goals of it are to simplify and clarify our procurement procedures, to allow continuous improvement, to provide for increased public confidence in the procedures that we follow, ensuring fair and reasonable treatment of everyone who bids or provides proposals, to provide better economy on procurement activities and so forth. I know you've all looked at the policy in your backup materials. I'm happy to answer any questions about it or work on any other sections that you think need further work.
Thank you, John. Questions from the board? Isaac?
Not at this time, thank you.
Amanda?
It's great that we're clarifying this. It's great work. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. Thanks. I have no questions. Peter?
I have no questions.
No? No questions. Great. Anyone in the public with questions about the procurement policy? Seeing none.
I'll make a motion.
Yes.
Yeah, I move to adopt the procurement policy as presented.
Okay, Amanda has made a motion to adopt the procurement policy as presented. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
5-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, great. Moving on to the General Assistance Motel Program. We're going to invite Brenda to the table. Hopefully she's present. Hi, Brenda.
Hi.
Welcome. And Seth, I think we have some slides. Let's let Brenda start. Thank you, Sue.
I may or may not use them just because there's not a lot of time.
Okay.
I can come back and talk about my research a little bit, which I love to talk about. So I may, just so everyone knows, I may have to switch to sunglasses. I'm going to try not to, but I'm losing my vision. So.
And before you start, let me just quickly frame the conversation we're about to have, which is about the question of the town's participation in the GA Motel program that the state runs, the question of sort of caps and municipal limits on local usage of that policy, and if the board wants to make any changes there.
Thanks.
Could I add something?
Please.
Just to frame this, that this actually agenda item came out of something from public comment. It was somebody made a public comment on February 17th. It was over Zoom asking for information about the vouchers for the motel program and the apparent cap that was initiated by the municipality and questions about how that came to be. And then there was a commentary in the newspaper on the Commons on March 4th about this, and I have materials that are in the backup materials, but if you'd like a hard copy, I brought a few extras here. And that was something that at February 17th meeting, the town manager said, we could give that information about that, how this decision was made in the future, at a future select board meeting. So that kind of how we got to this moment.
Thank you, Isaac.
So, good evening. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Brenda Siegel, the Executive Director of End Homelessness Vermont. I also was born and raised in Brattleboro and ran a business here for 20 years. I'm here, I want to tell you actually a tiny bit about End Homelessness Vermont because most people don't know about it, so you can know what angle I'm coming from. End Homelessness Vermont is a statewide, lived experience-led organization that works toward the goal of ending poverty, disability discrimination, and homelessness in Vermont. We provide a data-driven safety net to the safety net that is trauma-informed and rooted in compassion, empathy, and housing first principles. We work closely with teams of providers around the state. We have a team approach. Our primary clients are people living with disabilities, health conditions, and complex needs in complex situations. We work in an ongoing capacity with around 600 households around the state, and around 300 households we work very, very closely with. And we renew people's vouchers. We help support them in service coordination. We do housing navigation, and we support them in multitudes of ways. Oftentimes people who providers, for whatever reason, they've fallen through the cracks. For sometimes very reasonable reasons, they need to work with somebody who has disability focus. We have just very quickly, we have two departments. We have an Office of Research and Advocacy, which again is the part I like to talk about the most. We can come back another time and talk about it. And we have an Office of Housing Advocate. And in that, we do all of our direct service work. We have case managers, and we have 4 volunteer nurses as well that work with us. So I want to just say that we answered more than 3,000 hotline calls in 2025, including through the winter. We were in front of the Human Services Board 300 times representing people with disabilities as non-attorney advocates. And I said more about folks that we work with. We also, in good news, were able to help find housing for 80 people in the last 12 months, or in the 12 months of 2025. So I'm here to speak in favor of the motion directing the town manager to communicate with the Department for Children and Families Economic Services Division. The motion hasn't been made yet, though, so I'm not here to speak let me rephrase that.
You can speak conceptually in favor of it.
I am speaking conceptually in favor of it. When access is limited to what we see on the ground is people living with disabilities who are truly the most vulnerable Vermonters ending up outside, including in my own community. This past winter, we had clients on oxygen, clients in wheelchairs, recent amputees, small children, including babies, aging Vermonters, and more who were living outside because of the limited access to hotel rooms. They were people who qualified. They were not people who were on do not rents. They were not people who had the police called on them all the time. They were people living with disabilities in really complex situations. And just for a snapshot in time, what I want folks to understand is that on January 20th of 2025 in Brattleboro, there were 240 people sheltered here. We happened to work with a great number of them in some small capacity because, again, we answer the phone. These were mostly people who lived here. And there were, in the same time, on January 19th of 26, there were 100 people. Moving forward to the spring, there were, on April 20th of 2025, there were 160 people sheltered in hotels in Brattleboro, and on April 6th of this year, there were 81. Frequently at End Homelessness Vermont, we gather information about which hotels are open across the state because we support people with research. One of the things that we discovered was that there were caps on the rooms in hotels in several communities, and we weren't sure why, but we do regularly ask for data on what's open, what's capped, so that we can support our clients, because oftentimes they need accessible rooms and they need other support like that. What we found out is that there was an extremely limited number of rooms available in Brattleboro, especially for people who did not have children. So in October, there was no cap in one hotel. However, there was about 5 rooms available there, and that was the one for single adults only. And there were 2 families-only hotels, which was outside of the law, but something the department did do was they added these family-only hotels, which conceptually we agree with, but it wasn't within the session law that had created this structure. And there was a 20-room cap at one of the hotels and a 30 at the other one. And that meant that there were 50 rooms for families in Brattleboro in October, and there was only 5 rooms for single adults. So that meant if you were an aging Vermonter, if you were someone with a wheelchair, it was nearly impossible to access a room. If you move forward to January, a couple more rooms were opened. There were 2 hotels that had 10 rooms available, and there was also there was one that had 30, same 50 for families. I think what's really important when we're talking about this is to realize the impact that that has. So in Brattleboro, I told you a little bit about who we saw outside in general. In Brattleboro, we know for sure, and these are a few examples, that there was a person with an amputated limb, a recently amputated limb, who was living outside. We know that there was a couple in their 80s who was living in their car. We know that there was a person in her 3rd trimester of pregnancy living in her car, and we know that there were a family of children of 3, and I can go on, but these are folks that have told me I could share that part of their story without sharing their name, that have asked, in fact, for their story to be shared. And I want to just say that we have done research. We're in the middle of a longitudinal study at End Homelessness Vermont, and what we found is that there's a large number of people living with complex needs and disabilities, which makes sense because that's where you lose your income. You are unable to pay your rent. You run into walls in your house because you're suddenly in a wheelchair, and then you lose your access to housing. And so what we think when we are not in this field and we aren't on the ground every day, are people experiencing homelessness and who is experiencing homelessness are two different things. And it's also really important to understand that the national data tells us that people experiencing homelessness who might go into the experience of homelessness not living with a disability will develop some kind of mental illness or disability very frequently in a large percentage within 30 days or 3 months. Again, I'm happy to come back and talk about that data a little bit more and our data that matches it. And that there's a very high percentage of people who are in the foster care system who are exited into homelessness. That matches federal data. We're not unique in Vermont, but it's something that to remember. And so we're really not giving people a shot when we're limiting this access to hotel rooms. The last 2 points that I really want to make about this, and then I'm open to questions, is that one is cost, because I know it's come up several times. I have not been able to follow all of the conversations, but I know it's come up several times. In 2017, there was research, federal research, that showed that the average cost in our communities of each person experiencing unsheltered homelessness was around $35,000. In Vermont, I believe it was more like $42,000, but I always like to use that lower number just so that we can get a sense. If there are roughly 124 people living outside, which is what I saw that the executive director of Groundworks shared, that would be a cost of $4,340,000 to our community and our state. And it does not save us money for them to be outside because it just pushes the cost onto nonprofits, emergency services, hospitals, libraries, and more. It's a very real part of the problem. We do eligibility every single day. We do not determine eligibility. I want to be really clear about that, but we support people in accessing emergency shelter, housing, all of those items. And we know that of these 124 people, if some of them don't qualify right now, if we let them live, the longer that they experience living outside, they probably will qualify eventually because they probably will have a disability eventually. And I don't know how that helps us as a community at all in terms of solving this crisis, not for our businesses as a former business owner or anyone else. As an org that works primarily with disabilities, we see the worst of the outcomes. From September of 2024 to September of 2025, 6.1% of our highest needs clients lost their lives, either outside or very close to an exit. We see these real and catastrophic outcomes. They're one of the hardest parts of the work that we do. Again, we're working with these highest needs, so it's a rather high percentage. And we urge the select board to do what they can to not limit access to hotel rooms so that people in this community are able to find shelter. I want to say one other thing that I realized I just left off, two other things. H 938 is a bill that's in the legislature right now, is I can't tell exactly. Usually I have a really good read on whether it's going to pass or not. I can't tell exactly what's going to happen with it, but it seems like it has support of the administration potentially, if some things change, and support of the legislature. It will change how this program works. It will create an overall system for a community response, and it will limit access to hotel rooms around the entire state, which is something we don't support, but just for your information, that would just be part of it. And that there is a there's something that I think people don't understand about people experiencing homelessness is that they don't want to go from community to community. There was a period of time several years ago when people were almost pushed into it. I will not say they were forced into it, but they were like, there wasn't anything in the law that protected them necessarily from not having to leave their community, except that if they said they couldn't get transportation there. Now, the law is very clear that you cannot be forced to leave your community. And so people generally, at least our clients, generally don't. And if they do, it maybe was because there was some kind of treatment or other support for them there, not for either for their mental health, for their physical health, for other things. So I just wanted to share those little pieces of information that we have. That's anecdotal. It is not science-driven data, those last two pieces.
Thanks, Brenda. That was a great presentation. I really appreciate it.
Thanks.
Let's bring it back to the board. I'd also, Sue Graff is here. If you care to join Brenda at the table, and I know you know a great deal about this topic as well, and I think will be a useful resource for us. Thank you for staying so late, both of you. And Sue, can you remind me of your official title, please?
Sure. I work for the Agency of Human Services, and I'm the Field Services Director that serves both the Brattleboro and the Springfield districts.
Thank you. So I'd like to bring it back for a discussion, the Select Board, and just to, I know it doesn't really need saying, but we're about to move into a topic that's sensitive and high temperature for a lot of people, and I'm confident that all of us will handle it with courtesy. So, we can start with a comment by a board member. We can start with a motion. The question, I think, before us is the concept of a municipal cap on participation in the program, and how we feel about that as a board, and if we want to make any changes.
Chair, I was hoping Sue could just present a little bit.
Do you have are there specific questions?
No, I just wondered if you brought a presentation or just a little bit of background for people who don't really understand about how the GA program works.
Sure, I can give a brief overview. It's changed a lot, so I can give current situation, but essentially folks are eligible for the program categorically, so they are fit one of a couple of categories. That has shifted over time. Currently, and I have written information just because it does shift all the time, people are eligible if they're over 65, they have a court-ordered or constructive eviction, they're disabled using kind of a waiver form. They're disabled in terms of receiving SSI or SSDI, so there are multiple ways to document disability. They're fleeing domestic violence. They're families with children, pregnant, victim of a natural disaster. They've experienced the death of a spouse, domestic partner, or minor child. And so those are the things that enable you to be eligible. And you have to meet other thresholds as well. So our Economic Services Division, which is a part of the Department for Children and Families, fields those eligibility calls for people who need emergency housing. This is emergency housing. It's for short-term emergencies. It wasn't built primarily to end homelessness per se, but it is a mechanism. It's a strategy for helping people who are unsheltered. And so we just came out of the adverse weather conditions, so during the 4 coldest months of the year from December 1st through March 31st, people can have extended stays in the motel program. Outside of those 4 months, there's a cap of 80 nights per 12-month period, going back to July 1st, 2025. It used to be a rolling 12-month eligibility time, and it's based on your utilization of the program. So it was designed for people to be able to utilize it as they needed it. COVID changed all that and really increased the numbers, obviously, because people couldn't move about, and it was really meant to protect them, protect their health and safety. So there, like I said, been changes. This current fiscal year, that's where we are. We currently use 5 hotels in Brattleboro. The Brattleboro district is not just Brattleboro, it's really southern Windham County. So when you see some of the information about our region, the Housing Coalition, and other housing and homelessness efforts, you're going to see reference to Windham South. That's us. That's the Brattleboro district. So that's all the towns except for the top 4 northernmost towns in Windham County. So all of our work in terms of the Housing Coalition and the work that we're doing around homelessness is really regional, but there aren't any hotels currently that accept state vouchers outside of Brattleboro in the Windham South or Brattleboro district. So I could go on, but specific questions might be helpful just to understand kind of who it serves. And it is a
that
statewide,
was helpful background.
Yeah, it is a statewide program, just to be clear. So we are, the hotel capacity is, and there's a website, there are 2 websites, but one for economic services specifically around eligibility, the application, the adverse weather condition, the daily capacity. So there's a sense of how many hotel rooms are available by district that's posted every day. And then there's monthly data that the department reports to the legislature. And so that's a snapshot of how the program is being utilized, how many rooms are being utilized by district, who is eligible in what categories, how many hotel rooms are being utilized, things like that. So that is monthly data that's reported by the department and is made public, reported to the legislature. So that's.
Thank you, Sue.
Sure.
Isaac, did you have a question?
Yeah, thank you. Sure. I had a couple of follow-up questions for you, Brenda, as well as one for you, Sue. And Brenda, you said that there were a couple in their 80s, that there was a person in their 3rd trimester of pregnancy, and a family with 3 children. Where were those people?
Well, they're outside. The couple, some were sleeping in their cars. It's our, we don't talk about where people actually were as part of our process.
So somewhere in Vermont.
Privacy. No, in Brattleboro. Sorry, that was a specific question. Those were Brattleboro people. Yeah.
That was. Did you say this year?
This year.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so this year there was a couple in their 80s sleeping outside, a person in their 3rd trimester, and a family of children of 3 children, all in Brattleboro this year, who are living outside or in their car.
Correct, yes.
Okay. And did you say that in October there were just 5 rooms for single people?
I believe that was September, and I just want, I have that as October. So October, and what I do want to be clear is that there wasn't a cap on that particular hotel, but that particular hotel only used 5 rooms, and the other hotels that had single only were not being opened to folks. So that
there was more capacity than 5?
Oh, would there have been, had they been allowed to be utilized, or the municipality hadn't asked to? Yes, there would have been more. As well, yeah.
So there was a municipality cap that there were only 5 rooms that people were able to use because of the policy decisions that were made. I'm just trying to figure out what was the capacity, because I'm looking at this memo from the town manager from April of 2025, where it says the numbers were up to 356 people in the motel program in Brattleboro. And so I'm looking
You're talking about in October?
In April of 2025, it says the numbers were up to 356 people in Brattleboro, according to the state's website. And so what I'm curious about is, how did we go from 356 people in this motel program in Brattleboro to 5 rooms for single adults?
So I'm not sure what snapshot in time that was from for that data because it's on a date. So they had a regular check-in at the legislature, and so that's how you. And also the DCF puts the numbers up rather regularly, and so the numbers that I have actually don't match that. They're April 20th were 160 last year in 2025, and April 6th was 81 of this year. And so the thing that I will say is that it's the cap. So right now, I can't remember the exact number that Libby said, but it's around 126 or 132.
What Libby shared,
Yeah.
which is in the select board, the meeting notes for this meeting, and a few of you have a copy of it you might share with others, is some bullet points from Libby Bennett, the director of groundworks. And she said that there were, as of March 31st of this year, there were 124 unique individuals, meaning 124 different people that their outreach team had engaged with who in Brattleboro who are unsheltered. So in the first 3 months of this year, 124 unsheltered people that Groundworks outreach team had engaged with.
So if you look at that and you say from on 120 of 2025 it was 240 people, and on 119 of 2026 it was 100 people. So again, just a snapshot in time. And then on 420 it's 160, and on 46 it's 81. That number that Libby is talking about matches almost identically the amount of rooms that was capacity. Brattleboro was at capacity because one of our staff does renewals all day, every single day. And so every time we were asking to get somebody in, it was extraordinarily hard to, because there was not capacity for it in Brattleboro.
Thank you. So I'd like to make sure we spread this around the board. I think it's clear that at some point that, let's say a year ago, room usage in Brattleboro was much higher. Mm-hmm. Now it's down to below 100, mm-hmm. I think, from the last time I looked. It seems clear that at some level that is at the direction of the municipality. This screenshot, I believe, comes from a information request, but it's not something I have firsthand knowledge of. I think the question before the board is really going to be, do we want to place limits on, or attempt to place limits, because this is all advisory with the state. We don't have direct control. Do we want to say to the state, for example, we don't want to recommend caps on usage, or do we want to make tweaks, or are we comfortable with the current policy as is? And I'd like to keep us somewhat focused around the decision we might make.
Do you want me to speak to the spreadsheet?
Sure.
Could we actually pull up the spreadsheet that I had shared onto the screen so everybody could see what we're talking about? And I would just say while you're pulling that up, I actually think it's a really important question about how we got here.
Yeah. So let's
I also, because you're pulling up something, Isaac, want to encourage the audience that you can go to, you can go on the Department of Children and Families website and look for addressing and preventing homelessness, and you actually can see the data. It was last renewed April 6th, and you can look at past. So if you want to engage in that as well, independently while this is going on, because there's a lot of numbers flying around. So it's the Agency of Human Services, Department for Children and Families, addressing and preventing unsheltered homelessness. And you can go right to that data tab, and the simple PDFs, and you can go into historical data as well while you're sitting there.
And maybe this can be screen shared as well for folks on Zoom.
So if you could briefly characterize that for us, that would be helpful.
Sure. So one thing that we ask, we regularly do a records request for, like I said, we gather how much, where we can, because we need help trying to figure out where there are accessible rooms, which rooms will be available. We had, when we ask for it, we're trying to understand the landscape. So we ask for them every couple of months, and we were surprised, I would say even shocked, when we saw, not just in Brattleboro but in a few places, that rooms were capped by municipality request because, but in Brattleboro, there were more hotels with rooms capped by municipality request than anywhere else. And that made it very difficult and challenging for us to find housing. So just so you know, I know that others have also made this request at other times, so I don't know which one this is, but we have seen these spreadsheets. We have direct knowledge of them, have seen them several times.
Okay. I'd like to make sure other board members have a chance to comment, and then at some point we'll need to move towards a motion or not a motion, and taking some action or not.
Yeah, I mean, I'll dive in here. So on Isaac's memo, you know, a few things that I have a problem with. I would have rather seen the entire report, not just a screenshot that seems to capture a narrative. All right, I mean, if you have this entire report, that would have been nice to share. So I don't have that information. And, you know, I just have what this says at this particular point in time. Having kind of gone through a lot of public safety issues over time, and this unfairly gets lumped into that, I will also speak to a number, which John will help me remind me, a quick study that we did about what it costs the town to serve these people, and it was over $600,000 is the number I seem to recall. That included costs for emergency services, DPW, things like that. My point being is, when I speak on these issues, it's easy to frame me as somebody who's not compassionate. When I have a tremendous amount of compassion. I speak from a person who says, as a town, I don't feel we have the capacity to help these. We're at sort of an impasse of sorts. A little bit of I don't want to say a crisis, but we're at a structural crisis as to how we handle this. You're at a structural crisis as to how you handle this. To keep heaping it on top of a community that has forever been a very generous community, and people are beginning to fatigue by that. I'll also kind of say, like, as much as I read Laura Chapman's commentary, it's commentary. All right, so the fact that we're even entertaining this as part of a discussion. I mean, I've been writing commentary for 30 years. It's never been presented as something that is supposed to stand up and we're supposed to make decisions on. So, you know, that is part of my problem. There is some good data in here, don't get me wrong, but, you know, we have a real financial responsibility to this municipality. And I definitely do not want to make a decision one way or the other tonight without taking a deep dive into what this costs the town of Brattleboro, what we can do to help. I mean, I've dropped off a meal at Groundworks last night, and they're at capacity. So I question what can they actually do to sort of help. Now, I go back a long way, had worked a long time with Morningside Emergency Shelter when they had 15 beds, very manageable to help people, to counsel people, to do things. We're not there anymore. I understand that. We're dealing with a lot of out of control circumstances, but to keep kind of dumping them on a community is, I feel, unfair to them. It's unfair to us. And again, I say that as a person with tons of compassion. I don't see enough here for me to make a decision. I want to see more numbers. I want to probably ask John and staff to kind of compile those numbers as to what things like that are being asked of us tonight are going to cost this community. Because at the end of the day, we all have to pay for it. You know, I mean, we spent some time just tonight, a half an hour, just deciding who's going to make decisions on the human services budget. There's another $350,000. I mean, at what point in time do we say kind of, we want to help, but I don't know that we can.
Thank you, Peter. I want to make sure Nell has a chance to comment.
I just wanted to respond to what Peter brought up about the presentation and the materials that I provided, but happy to defer to Nell and come back to it.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Just if it's about clarifying what that report was, I think that's important.
Yeah, and I'm hoping that we could enlarge it on the Zoom, enlarge it on the screen so people could see it. But this is just the snapshot for Brattleboro on this spreadsheet from the Economic Services Division from this past fall. And it shows it in context of, this isn't just some of the motels in Brattleboro, but it's all the motels that are involved with this program or have been. And I thought about including the whole spreadsheet, but I wanted to try to be mindful of the number of pages, and I'm happy to share that with board members.
Point of clarity, is this spreadsheet basically the information that End Homelessness Vermont got from the FOIA?
We regularly do them. We know that others have also asked for this records request similarly, so I just want to make that clear. But we regularly do do these spreadsheets, and we try to not conflate them with our advocacy, because I feel like there's sometimes tension between us and the state at times. So.
I don't mean to put you on the spot there, but so I understand. Is this a spreadsheet that your organization made with information?
We have one that's identical.
This is from the state, though.
Oh, no, sorry, we didn't make, sorry, let me
That's what I'm
your
trying
question.
to figure out, thank you.
No, we did not make this spreadsheet.
Okay.
No, this was a record, this is what was delivered. We have an identical one that was delivered to us.
Okay, thank you.
Except it's the whole thing, too.
Okay.
So, I will, sorry.
Well, I saw your face itching, so again, if there's a point of clarity, I think just deal with them as they come up. I have my piece ready.
Brenda, go ahead. I don't want us to get too free range here because
I just wanted to just respond quickly, which is that I think that the community is paying for it either way. And I've been in front of select boards across the state. I've actually limited my time in front of Brattleboro Select Board just because I grew up here. In a lot of communities, that's the same thing. It's getting piled on us. That's really what a lot of folks feel. And I'm not saying that Brattleboro doesn't have a very complex and large problem, but the costs are still being paid for by the community when folks are outside. You may not have the same structure for understanding the cost, but it is happening.
Thank you, Brenda. Nell?
So my summary understanding of this, people are concerned with what was seen through some of the earlier iterations of the program with essentially, because this is an emergent response to homelessness and it is not a long-term shelter system, it does not have caseworkers embedded in it. Some of the funding that was available for coordinated entry organizations to send caseworkers to motels has since been lost. People are concerned with what they have seen, which is essentially people coming down through the program, and then when access ends, a growth in a municipal homeless population or a growth in a population of people that are actively unsheltered. I understand that has been what I've heard repetitively as kind of the core concern for, not the core concern for problems with this program, but the core concern for how that translates into costs on a municipality. With that in mind, the way I tried to approach this is with the, the way I tried to approach this is how many people are actively unsheltered right now? How many people, regardless of have they been here for 5 years or 1 year, if people can accept that folks are in the street and that has an impact on those folks, it has an impact on our public services, it has an impact on our communities. How many people are in the street and need intervention in this moment? That was how I tried to approach this. Sue was gracious in speaking with me on Friday and answered a lot of my questions because there are things I didn't understand about the program that I wanted to make sure I understood, like the eligibility, when I say intake process, I mean intake on the phone to try and get a voucher and what that looks like, among many other things. I spoke to some other board members. I spoke to individuals that wanted to speak to me and some individuals that I had questions for. I spoke to our police chief and I emailed with our fire chief. I wanted to feel like I could come into this confidently. I don't even necessarily feel like I'm coming into this confidently. And I emailed with Libby Bennett from Groundworks as well. So, you know, the number that we're hearing, 124 people that are actively unsheltered, that does not necessarily correlate with people that fit the eligibility criteria. And I've also heard, again, we're trying to work with hard numbers, and it's hard to know that. And I've heard oftentimes official numbers might lose some people in the way, like in the time. It might be lower. So these, I think, we can feel are conservative numbers. Another point that's been made abundantly clear to me is that, and something I'm not surprised at all in terms of other places I've lived, and this happens, right? What is disability? You know, SSI, SSDI, and then there's the physician waiver form. There's a certain amount of access and ability to navigate systems inherent in being able to get that physician waiver form. So this is all said with that in acknowledgement that there are people, even under these eligibility criteria, that technically should, you know, in an assessment of their situation, should be eligible, on paper are not, and is leaving people out. After all this discussion, which I'm really, really appreciative for everyone that took time to speak to me and help me understand this and help me see little areas that I did not have a hard grasp on because most of my knowledge about the program had been anecdotal. And I do think that is beneficial in terms of knowing people that have actually been going through it and see where the pitfalls happen, see where we fall short of essentially official process. My thinking was this. One, what is the statewide cap at? We know that there's $1,100, the state cap provides for 1,100 rooms across the state. Sue might have updated information for us, but going off of the pages that's available statewide, as of, you know, April 6th, you've got 915 listed on the DCF website. So that's, you know, 185 under their cap. Contrast that with the identified need in Brattleboro. You have 124 people identified as unsheltered. I asked Libby if she could give me an estimate of how many of those people might be eligible. She said that through speaking to her staff, that number was 20. I assume that that's a conservative estimate. To me, to try to frame this in a way that acknowledges all the concerns I've tried to lay out here, there is nothing to be gained from people who are in this community actively unsheltered already from being in the street if they could be in a room. That is not saying that I don't think there are problems with the motel program. And that is not, essentially it's the conclusion that I think everyone has drawn, is that there is a need for legislative change of this program. My personal opinion, especially coming from most people know I grew up in Ontario. We have a provincially managed shelter system there. My personal impression is that it's a little wild the way we farm out those services here. And to not have, you know, caseworkers embedded in something that's meant to be prevention of longer term homelessness, in my opinion, is setting people up to fail. We are a municipality that's outside of our range of action. You know, we can lobby legislators the way many other people. So I hope that that makes my thought process clear to people. I do, you know, share some sentiment that Peter expressed as I just went into this and I was like, wow, I wish I had started doing this a week earlier. That's my fault. You know, I'm going to continue to try to keep myself up on this and really understand like the nooks and crannies of it in our community. I think that it makes sense to respond to an active need in people in the community of people who are actively unsheltered here. How you assess that is a different thing. And I understand that there will be a frustration from some folks because even if you increase a voucher size in relation to how many people we've identified as being actively unsheltered in Brattleboro and eligible There is no guarantee from the state that that is who is going to get the vouchers. That has to be done in correlation with support from those actively unsheltered people to be able to get through the intake process. I understand there's an inherent risk in that, and that's at great frustration, and I'll wrap it up. Thank you, Oscar. The only other thing that I came across that I think is worth noting and that I've seen in my personal experience, Sue had mentioned to me that outside of district but nearby, for example, Bennington and Bellows Falls being larger pockets, there was something like 36 households identified as being out of district who would prefer to be in Brattleboro. And the reason I bring that up is because, again, anecdotally, myself and probably others, I had a neighbor who became homeless because he left. Some people came into his apartment and he left that apartment out of fear of those people. He got sent to Bennington because that's where he could get a room. He's lived in Brattleboro at least 8 years that I was aware of. So again, it is really hard when we have a state-administered program and as a municipality are limited in the way that we can alter that to attempt to match the need that's here. I'll stop now.
Thank you, Nell. Do you mind if I ask a few questions? I feel like I haven't been over here for a minute, but do you mind?
Go for it, Chair.
I have a couple questions. I would like to better understand the caps. So, John, I think these are questions for you. Is this a screenshot? I guess the questions are, is this a good representation of where we stand currently on our asks to the state? And, or was it much more sort of ambiguous, like, boy, please send fewer people here, and the state turned those into numbers? The latter.
That's correct, yep.
Okay, so at no point was there a conversation of, hey, only 5 rooms at the covered bridge?
I was not aware of any municipal caps until Isaac told me there were municipal caps. I was not aware of that.
Okay. There's some ambiguity here, like Black Mountain Inn 20-room cap. There's no reason for you to know, Brenda, but if you happen to know, is that presented in this document as a municipal cap? Because hotel owners can also make their own requests.
I happen to know for Black Mountain Inn does not have a cap necessarily. They would take someone if they before this cap is a state cap. However, I happen to know that Black Mountain Inn, I grew up with the owners, so I happen to know them. I happen to know that they are like to have a mixed population of people who are from the state and people who are regular guests. They feel like that works the best, so I know that they would preserve some of their rooms for that, no matter what.
Okay, so thank you. And then for...
It looks like Sue had...
Yeah. And just for clarity, the 2 of the 5 hotels have been designated for families with children. Yeah. Black Mountain Inn is one of those 2. So
and
Black
Quality
Mountain Inn
Inn
and Quality Inn are the 2 designated for families with children.
Great.
So we would only place families with children with vouchers in those hotels.
The only time that does change is when, just so you know, is when there's like a reasonable accommodation request and it's like an accessible room. And sometimes they will allow people to be there for that reason.
Thank you. So for the 2 that are marked no new placements at request of municipality, I know there were problems with some of these. Can you tell me a little more about how that went with Econo Lodge and Travel Lodge?
I mean, I talk with the folks at DCF all the time on the phone. We share information about arrests that are made, harassment charges by proprietors, but we just share that information so that everybody knows what is happening and whether a particular establishment is suitable for the program or not. But that is the state's call. It's not something that the town enforces in any way.
Certainly.
Yeah.
But not a conversation of, hey, no more placements at Travelodge State.
If the state suggests that they might not want to put somebody in a certain motel, I may agree with that, or I may not disagree with it. But it's just conversations. Really, this all came out after the community conduct ordinance was rescinded by representative town meeting. We had been going for a way to try to capture some of the revenues that were going to the motels through the ordinance, but the town did not want to do that. That was the way we were trying to offset the impacts to the town's budget, was through that ordinance. When that got rescinded, we started to have more conversations with DCF about basically just saying, why if Brattleboro's only, less than 2% of the state population, why do we have 19% of the rooms in the GA motel program? And it was just asking that question. It wasn't saying, come to a certain level or anything like that. It was just like, the municipality was just saying, this is a lot of cost that we're seeing because of the number of people that are being brought to Brattleboro to fill these available rooms. And so, it wasn't like get it to a certain level or anything like that. It was just really asking that question from a budgetary standpoint, like what could we do to mitigate that? And I think the state agency, to its credit, was like trying to find ways to help us out in Brattleboro because we have such a high burden of the GA motel program here in Brattleboro relative to anywhere else in the state.
Great, thank you. I have a couple general thoughts, but I want to ask Amanda or Isaac, do you have follow-up comments at this time?
I do.
Okay.
Go for it. Yeah,
please.
Okay. I have a lot of different directions I can go on this one. The first and foremost, I'm going to address the issue of cost. Town Manager's Office provided me with some data. In 2024, with our 6 motels, there were 1,175 calls for emergency services. In 2025, same 6 motels was a little lower, 1,051 calls. Combined, those 2 years created a cost of $1,014,000. Combined with our lost rooms and meals tax, that would have gone in our 1% in Brattleboro for 2024 and 2025, which would have been $46,000. That took us up to losing $1,060,000, including hidden costs such as employee risk and emergency services. We are dealing with very high workers' compensation rates. We had an incident just this winter where one of our firemen was strangled by someone at one of the hotels who was coming out. You can look it up in the Reformer. So when we combine all those costs and then address the fact that it is our responsibility as a select board to protect, to work in the best interest of the town, our taxpayers, the safety of our community. We heard Nina's testimony at the beginning of this meeting. I think that what we are currently doing with hosting 7 to 8% of the GA program, the state-run GA program, is not nothing. It's helpful to people. We don't have the most in the state, but why should we? And I want to ask, Brenda, have you talked to the town of Putney to see if they might have their Putney Inn on the list? And also, are there any in Newfane, where you live?
So I have no problem being asked that. I get asked that all the time, things like that. Like, will you host people in your home? But I do want to just say that we actually have asked the town of Newfane to support a family, and they did for some period of time. They were not contracted with the state, so it had to be through donation. We know that in the past Putney has done that as well. We, as an organization, work with hotels outside of the GA program and do ask for support from the communities surrounding the general areas where they're in the districts. So the answer is yes.
However, we live, for example, in Newfane, where I live. It's basically a food desert. It's not a good place for somebody who doesn't have any access to a car, who might need medical attention. I did want to just add to that, just because it's come up a few times, why people change the district. We have had clients change district. They change the district because they need medical care, or they need to access some kind of specialist of some kind, or some kind of care. So I just wanted to say that sometimes it's because it's a location to a hospital. And I don't know, because I don't know the town's data, and I'd love to talk to you more about it, John, but I don't know how many of those emergency calls were needing access to an emergency room. There are a lot of people in the hotels that are very, very sick, and so they do have many emergency calls. They also will be just as sick outside. And so, Amanda, to answer your question, yes, I just wanted to make sure that was also part of it.
Yeah. It's also notable that one of the testimonies that are in our backup materials are from Ms. Chapman, and who lives in Putney. And I'm wondering about the Putney Inn, if they've been asked. And this just goes to say that we are responsible for the town of Brattleboro. We are currently hosting 7 to 8% of the GA program as of April 6th. We currently are hosting 104 adults and 55 children, and that's not nothing. And what I'm advocating for is balance, something our emergency services can support, something that where our community members feel safe, feel more confident that we are at a place of balance versus when we were hosting 19%, because that was really, frankly, unsustainable. So this, just reinforcing, this is a state program, a state program. This is not Brattleboro's program. If it was Brattleboro's program, we'd probably run it a lot different. I believe that our town manager's advocacy to the state has been essential to manage operational costs associated with the program. And I endorse the town manager's work just thus far advocating to moderate the number of rooms that we are hosting. And I think it's it's okay, because it's an operational expense, and he's in charge of the staff, and we need to budget for staff operations. And then I will concede my time.
Thanks, Amanda. Isaac?
My biggest concern, I think, here is around the way that it appears a policy, from looking what we have from the state. And maybe, Sue, you have something to add to this, but it looks like there was a policy to request from the town of Brattleboro, and I don't recall the select board ever having discussed that. So I think that's one thing. And in terms of the actual costs, I actually am with Peter that I would like to see more about the actual costs. The data that Amanda just shared, that's not something that I believe was shared. I don't know, did other select board members get that data?
I think Amanda got that on her own.
I requested it.
Yeah, so I haven't had a chance to look through that, to study that. I'm also interested to see, and maybe this is data that one of you has here, but in terms of the cost to the town for the people who previously were in the motel voucher program, but now are living on the streets or in their cars, like what does that cost? Also interested to know the cost of, has the cost decreased if the population of people in the motels has significantly decreased, and we are at, what is it? You said over $1 million in cost to the town. If we've seen this big decrease in the number of people in the motel voucher program, then have we seen a big decrease in the costs to the town? So I'd like to get some more information around that and see, and be happy to look at that before we make decisions. But I'm interested to hear what you have to say as well, Oscar, and of course what the public has to say.
Sure, and mechanically, if the desire was not to make a decision today, someone could make a motion to postpone for a time definite or for a time indefinite. A time indefinite is essentially to, under Robert's rules, basically it goes away and would be put back on another agenda. A time definite would be, we would specify a meeting. So if anyone...
I will make a motion to postpone on indefinite, only because I think it's, you know, we have a lot coming up. We have our board retreat. There's going to be some organizing there. But, you know, I would defer to John because, once again, and I'm you know, this conversation is going to cost money, right? You know, we got John, who's still operating without an assistant town manager, who's going to have to, you know, pull in more people from his staff to pull these numbers together. I'd be happy to set a date on it, but, you know, I would want John to tell me what he thinks he could realistically do, and then probably add a couple of weeks.
Well, I think that, well, I'll let people speak for themselves, of course, but let's do this by the book, which is that Peter's made a motion to postpone to a time indefinite. If the board wants to set a date, then this would be the time to do that. And not having, so let's discuss briefly.
I appreciate, Peter, your offer, what you said about that you'd be happy to set a date, and based on in consultation with the town manager, that makes sense to me. If you're up for that, for doing that, I'm also interested in hearing what the public has to say.
Yes, and I don't actually know what happens to the agenda item if this motion passes. But I
think we table it.
I think the conversation would end and we would move on to the next agenda item. So I read a bunch of Robert's rules over the weekend, but I don't have it memorized yet. I would certainly, I think it might make everyone's lives easier if we did pick a date, just for the sake of not having to go round on picking one informally later. Just my opinion. I'm also happy to vote yes on a time indefinite. John, what are your thoughts?
You could have a conversation at your retreat. Again, it's like, what are your priorities? What do you want us spending time on? If we're running down a bunch of numbers for this, that means we're not working on housing, we're not working on all the other things that are potential priorities for you guys. So, you need to have clarity on that and what three of you see as the most important things for the staff to be spending time and money on. So,
can we amend time indefinite at an indefinite point in time?
Can you say that?
Yeah, no, I mean, basically, I think John really brings up a good issue. We have this board retreat coming up. It's clearly going to be something we want to address. So I would say I would like to keep my motion as to postpone it to a time indefinite, and if this makes sense or not, and then come up with a realistic time in our board retreat.
Well, it is time for the board to discuss and act on that motion, if there's any other discussion.
So I hear John's concerns, and I think they're very legitimate, that staff is doing a lot of work. Mm-hmm. I'm just being a pill at this meeting, and thank you for humoring me. We are going to pay money for our staff to analyze a program that's the state's program. I mean, sure, it makes sense for us to analyze how it works in our community, but that's still real money. And what we need to always have in mind is that we made a budget, right? We made a budget. The town approved our budget. Thank you, town. April 11th. do we have the funds? Do we have the bandwidth? Do we have the capacity and the morale to request that from our staff to keep working on it?
So you're suggesting that we do not postpone and we...
I'm not suggesting anything. I'm just saying these are all considerations. And members of our community bring it up all the time. Like, don't overcomplicate it. Don't overcomplicate the life of your staff and the daily work by adding. So if we agree as a select board, yeah, like, this is worth it. But I just think we have to really weigh that.
If we're considering postponing, I think it makes sense to add it as a topic for our retreat. I think it will be an unavoidable topic for our retreat, which is on the 30th. And I think I'm hearing a commitment from this board to revisit. Yes, Isaac.
Here's my concern. This issue was raised in public in January. This was raised at a select board meeting on February 17th. There were questions that were asked that were begun to be answered tonight, but it was deferred. Multiple members of the public approached me over the last few months asking for this. I made multiple attempts to get this on the agenda. And finally, we have gotten a chance for the public to be able to ask questions and get information. And we have had members of the public who have been waiting here for hours to be able to talk about this. One member of the public spoke at the beginning to this issue and was allowed to finish, and I appreciate what you said. It's a really important contribution. But there are multiple members of the public here who have not had a chance to be heard. And if we keep on doing that to the public, we're going to get more motions at more town meetings in the future to revisit decisions because the public feels shut out. We have to have an opportunity for the public to weigh in and to ask questions and get their questions answered.
Thank you, Isaac. Peter, how would you feel about hearing from the public and then making your motion?
I'd like to speak to the motion.
Can I try a point of information?
Certainly. Well, not actually. I would like to hear from you, Bob.
Bob Ozer, Brattleboro. So in the backup material for today, you have what appears to be a screenshot. And the screenshot is from, or alleges to be, a screenshot of a spreadsheet from the Economic Services Division. So this is really a question for the state, not the municipality. There are entries in that screenshot, in that spreadsheet. So can we ask the state who edited that spreadsheet? And how did they get the information that they put in that spreadsheet? And that doesn't imply any additional work for the municipality.
Thank you, Bob. I want to try and keep a hold of this. So
the question to me is, do we want to hear from the public? Sure, we always want to hear from the public, yes. Right? But I mean, Isaac made a point about things being kicked down the road and all of that. I will make a further point that every time these meetings go astronomically long, and Nina has been sitting here since 6:15 hours to speak to this, that too breaks down engagement. That when we don't hit our time marks.
I'm sorry, I'm going to be a dick.
No,
yeah, no, you're going to sit down. Is what you're going to do. So anyway,
hang on.
You know what?
I'm out.
See you later.
Actually, people are dying.
Hang on. We're going to keep order at the meeting because we have to make progress. We're going to fall back on our rules of procedure, and if I have to individually yield people the floor before people speak, that's how we'll do it. We have a motion on the floor, which is to postpone to a time indefinite. We're discussing that motion. I understand the desire to hear from the public and to honor the time of people who have been waiting for a long time. That's completely legitimate. And yet, if this motion passes, that will not happen. So if this board does not want that to happen, we should have a no vote on this motion and then hear from the public.
I hate to do this.
Mm-hmm.
Point of order.
Please.
9:45.
Yes. And for the first time, we have reached per our new rules and procedure, the point in our meeting where any member of the board can choose to, choose to end the meeting because we have reached time. Yes, Isaac.
I move to adjourn.
Okay. Isaac has,
In our rules of procedure, did we say that at 9:45 we had to have a vote, or it's the majority?
It says we need unanimous consent to proceed.
Jesus fucking Christ.
Hang on.
Yeah, I'm fine with saying that out loud.
Sincerely, can I ask a question?
Mm-hmm.
I suppose so.
I guess I'm confused because Isaac made the point that it was so important to hear from the public.
I think
the motion is made to adjourn, and then the meeting ends at that point.
I think what's happening is that, we're all having a bad time and everyone's pretty frustrated.
So if I remember our rules of procedure, we all had to agree to extend the meeting, right?
It requires unanimous consent.
I think the motion to adjourn is premature. I think we have to agree or not agree on that, and that will speak to whether people get to speak or not. But my point of order that I was trying to make was that we do have to be mindful of people's times.
Yes.
And that means how we run these meetings is of utmost importance of
Certainly.
getting everybody's voices heard. So I have made a point of order that it is 9:45. I personally am okay, and I think our point, or if I remember correctly, extending it by 15 minutes?
At our discretion, I believe.
At our discretion. So I would be open to, extending this another 15 minutes so as to hear from the public. And I would vote in favor of that.
Is the board willing to hear, we need unanimous consent, 15 minutes of public comment on this issue. If there is not unanimous consent, we will adjourn. And that is per our rules. How does the board feel?
I feel good about that.
15 more minutes?
Mhm.
Is that?
I drink caffeine to stay here till we finish the agenda. So.
It's on you.
I'm not putting anyone on the spot, but should we continue for another 15?
May I speak to this?
Yes.
We just saw a community member leave this room after having sat through this, who's gone through an incredible amount of stress today that I don't believe anybody else in this room has gone through. What she has had to deal with today, she needs to be in this room and she needs to be part of this conversation. So I'm not comfortable continuing past 9:45. I raised this issue over an hour ago that I was concerned about the time.
Certainly.
I asked if we could, I suggested a couple agenda items that we could, maybe the stormwater utility issue or another issue could be deferred. The sentiment was to continue, and this is what we get. This was the procedure we agreed to, and there's not unanimous consent to continue this meeting at this time.
Someone else from 69A who could represent Lisa's viewpoint is on Zoom with their hand raised.
I am not interested in continuing. I've said that there's not unanimous consent to continue this meeting at this time.
Okay. The meeting is adjourned. Thank you all.
I'll happily talk to you.
I'm interested in being at the legislature.